I don't need it. Good. Good thing, right?
All right, we are go for launch.
Good evening and welcome to the July 22nd, 2026 meeting of the Henrietta Town Board. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford,
Here.
Councilmember Safranek,
Here.
Councilmember Owens,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin the meeting with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the preceding meeting from July 1st, 2026. Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. First up, we have special use permit application number 2026-011, El Rancho Viejo, 3679 West Henrietta Road, to modify a special use permit number 2023-023 to now also include the sale of alcohol in addition to the allowed operation of a restaurant with dine-in, takeout, meal service, outdoor seating, and a drive-through. Do we have a representative from El Rancho coming up? Just introduce yourself and your relationship to the project.
Yeah, I'm Sergio Lopez and I'm part owner of the.
And so, as I understand it, you want to now also include the sale of alcohol. Is this just like beer and wine coolers or that type of stuff?
Yes.
Malt beverages? And do you have a anticipated opening date? I have someone in our office who's very excited to eat at your restaurant.
Who is working on the fire alarm?
Fire alarm?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's all we need to do right now.
great. And are you continuing the drive-through or
No, it's gonna be,
do you think you might ever do it in the future?
not sure yet.
We'll just leave it in there.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
yeah, but I thought I'd heard that you weren't going to do the drive-through. So, most of the other stuff has already been approved. I'll just note that for the outdoors, if you do the outdoor seating, just make sure you have some kind of barricade in between where the seating is in the parking lot. So like if it's around the side, that's fine. But if it's out front, what a lot of people do is they get like concrete planters,
Yes,
something like that, something that works just so someone doesn't accidentally drive into your patrons. So,
okay.
that's all I've got. I don't know, does anyone else have any questions, comments? This one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the drive-through. You have your liquor license already?
No yet,
Okay.
not yet.
One of the things the liquor authority wants to see is that they have local approval for this site.
Okay.
Hours of operation?
I'm sorry?
Your hours of operation?
11 to 9.
Okay, thank you.
Is the outdoor seating, is that going to be in the front or is that going to be in the back?
It's not been approved right now. We just applied for it
Okay.
because they say it was easier to manage the way.
Okay, great.
Yeah, like
So,
in case of the, later on, we need to do a sitting outside, it'd be easier.
Right.
gotcha. So right at the moment, the plan is just indoor seating? Okay. And how much seating are you looking to have?
I think it's around 100, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
You-
Any other questions from the town board? Is there anybody from the public who has a question on this application? Okay, oh, no, you gotta come up and speak to the mic. Could you move over to the table, sir? Yep,
Very simple question. Where is this located?
it's the former Burger King on West Henrietta Road. For a short while, it was a bubble tea. But that's where the restaurant's going. So like I said, it was previously approved as a restaurant. They're just adding up the sale of alcohol.
3679 West Henrietta Road.
Will they be expanding that building then?
If you could answer into the microphone.
I don't know right now.
Okay,
Depends.
all right. Well,
Yeah, if they were to expand, they would have to go in for a site plan approval, but they wouldn't have to come back here for a special use permit update.
Thank you.
Ma'am,
It's right at Commerce Drive.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna have her give her name
Commerce.
for the
Yeah,
record.
yeah, sorry, good point. Could you give your name for the minutes?
Right.
Shirley Wright? Okay, that's fine. I just told it. You're all set. Thank you. Wright.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Then hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit application number 2026-011, El Rancho Viejo, 3679 West Henrietta Road. Anyone wish to make a motion?
Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I make a motion to approve special use permit application number 2026-011 El Rancho Viejo at 3679 West Henrietta Road to modify a special use permit number 2023-023 to now also allow the sale of alcohol in addition to the allowed operation of a restaurant with dine-in and takeout meal service, outdoor seating, and a drive-through.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you send me an email at supervisor@henriettany.gov, I can connect you with the Chamber of Commerce. They have scissors and ribbons to do a ribbon cutting.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
This is for me or? is it-
Nope.
That's an agenda. You can take that or you can just leave it. It's for anybody. So
All right, thank you.
you bet.
Forward to it.
When are you planning on opening?
As soon as we have the fire, we're working on that.
Okay,
Yeah, so hopefully,
They're
okay,
updating because when you renovate more than 50% of the building, you have to upgrade to the latest standards. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it was under the old, yes.
Yes, yeah, but I know some young people, I'm sure that will be thrilled to come and try the newest Mexican restaurant. So,
Thank you.
I know some
Thank you.
older people that are.
Yeah.
So,
Young at heart.
Uh-huh.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Next up, I have a public hearing for a proposed local law to enact chapter 72 and amend chapter 295 of the Henrietta Town Code to regulate the location of data centers. Before we get started, I want to explain something because there seems to be a mass misconception about what's happening here, including a whole lot of nasty gram letters we've received. So today in our town code, data centers are an allowed use in any commercial or industrial zoning district. No special use permit required, no town board approval of any kind. Why? Because in the days those codes were written, there were no mega data centers. They were like my company's Pictometry. We had a data center. I don't even think it drew a megawatt. It was maybe 8 petabytes or so of data. So that concept just wasn't around. Last year, we had a realtor sniffing around for potential data center sites in Henrietta. waited to make sure they weren't submitting an application. When they weren't submitting an application, we said, you know what, we should get out ahead of this. And so what we're doing is we're changing the town code to deal with data centers. Now, everyone's like, why don't you just ban them? Because you can't. In New York State, you have to have a portion of town where the stuff is allowed, and it has to be reasonable. We can't say this one, acre lot is the only place that data centers are allowed. That's not legal, okay? The thing that's confused a lot of people is they see incentive zoning. Oh, you're incenting them to come in. That's actually not at all true. Under special use permits, like the one we just did, the burden of proof essentially is on the town to show, if we wanted to block it, we would have the burden of proof to show why that is a real problem. So we can identify, here are some potential adverse impacts, and then the applicant supplies mitigation efforts. And if they supply sufficient mitigation efforts, we have to approve them. If we don't, they go to court and they win, and the judge throws out a ruling and we're required to approve them. That's happened here in town a number of years ago. So what we've decided to switch to is we're going to do it through incentive zoning. Why incentive zoning? Because in incentive zoning, the burden of proof reverses. Now it's up to the applicant to show how if they want to get approved, they have to show that their project is going to be a benefit to the town. So incentive zoning works by, we offer incentives and they give back community benefits. In this case, the incentive is something called a complementary use. And what that means is it's a use that is normally not allowed in the zoning district, but is allowed in the zoning district through incentive zoning. To give you some examples of that, in our mixed use redevelopment area, so essentially Southtown and Marketplace Mall, hospitals is one of those complementary uses. The orthopedic center at the mall previously, and more recently, they're going after intellectual and developmental disability institute at the mall. Those both are coming under incentive zoning. So for them to get those uses, they have to offer us community benefits. And so that's an example of how it's used. So what we're saying here, when you look at it, there's three primary areas that data centers have significant adverse impacts. First one is power, right? Henrietta today has a lack of available power, especially West Henrietta. We're pretty much down to zero. To get that improved, and these prices are from 4 years ago, it was over $17 million to get a new transformer put in. We didn't have that money. The next developer coming in is the one who would have to pay for that. No developer is going to pay $17 million to put infrastructure at RG&E substation. So after long campaigning and with help of the county executive, our state senator, and our assembly member, we got the governor's office to put money towards, they basically put the initial 1/3 down, and now RG&E is putting a new transformer. Well, without incentive zoning, what could happen? That new transformer will supply about 35 megawatts. The new data center could come in and say, we're going to use 34.5 megawatts of that power. Suddenly we're all back at zero again. They don't have to buy a new transformer. We're wiped out. So what this incentive zoning says is if you're going to use a bunch of power, you have to upgrade the substations so that there is more power available to the town than before the data center came in. Okay, so going back to that example, we wouldn't let them do that. If we had 34.5 megawatts available, we would require them to put in a whole new transformer and maybe then some, or maybe just put in a new transformer. And oh, by the way, we have this circuit over here that is constantly going down because of problems. We want you to upgrade that circuit. That's a community benefit that they can offer. So that's power. Now let's look at water. With it, we can encourage them to go to some form of closed loop system, such as maybe geothermal, so that they're not consuming a bunch of water. If they're unwilling to go that route and they need to go water, we can take a look at that and say, okay, if you're going to do that, we need you to improve our water mains. Oh, by the way, we have these houses in southern Henrietta where it's very sparse. It's too expensive to form a water district to get these people water. They're all on wells. So data center, if you want to come in here, you need to run water main to all those residents. Those are the kinds of things we can require from them in the application. If they're unwilling to do any of those things, then it's very easy to say, well, you're not willing to provide a community benefit for the incentive of putting in a data center, your application is denied. And the last one, obviously associated with water, if you're drawing water, it's got to go somewhere. It's going to go down our sewer. Anyone who lives on the west side of Henrietta knows that we have problems with our sewer main. There's a giant pump station on John Street on the RIT campus. It's not associated to RIT, that's just where it's located. But the force main out of there up to the county system is very old. We cannot run they put in all these new pumps, which is great, higher capacity pumps, because when it rains, there's a lot of infiltration, not to mention a lot of people have their sump pumps improperly connected to the storm sewer, or excuse me, to the sanitary sewer. So when it rains, our sewers fill up. The problem is we can't run the pump station at full power, because if we do, that force main will explode. How do we know this? Because they tried to run it at full power and one section blew, and then they had to fix it. So we could say, well, if you're going to be putting all this additional water into our sewer main, you need to replace a brand new force main and fix that so that we don't have that problem. So the idea is if they come in and put all the stuff in place, so that their impact, the town is better off after they come in than before they were in, then is a data center really an issue? I would argue it's not. It doesn't create a whole lot of jobs. When you're looking at it, the one that, the size we were talking about, it was probably 3 shifts of 4 people. So they're good paying jobs, but there's just not a lot of them. So you're talking 12, maybe 24 for an even bigger data center. Now, I will say the only location in town where it can probably go is on East River Road, where we already have a lot of traffic. So in some ways, having a large industrial service there that only puts 4 cars on the road 3 times a day, that's not such a bad thing. The other benefit of it is what it could potentially do for the tax side of things, right? The smallest data centers are the ones that the size we're regulating are typically valued at about $100,000 or $100 million. The super massive ones, which again, we would never get, are worth about $5 billion. So let's say it's assessed at $1 billion. Well, that would lower everybody's taxes by 20%, not just town taxes, school taxes, county tax, fire tax, because our total assessed value of all the property in town is $5 billion. You add $1 billion to it, you've now just dropped your taxes. So again, we're not looking to bring one in, but if one's going to come in, we're going to make sure it's a benefit to the town. So that's the purpose of this law, to get out ahead of it. Because if we don't do it now and someone submits an application, we try to change the law, well, it's too late. Whatever the law is at the time of that application goes in. And the last thing I'll talk about is a number of people have asked, well, with the governor's moratorium, why are you still doing this? Because her moratorium, the state regulates the really large facilities. I think it's 50 or 100 megawatts. That's massive. We're starting more at like the 5 to 10 megawatt range. And an example of that is also solar, right? You see all the solar panels arrays that we've approved for these farmers to help keep their farm alive. They max out at 5 megawatts. There's a reason for that. 5 megawatts and below, it's under our control. Go bigger than that, it's under the state's control. So it's the same thing there. If someone wanted to come in with a 50 or 100, again, I don't think we have a location that will fit that. But if someone wanted to come in with one that size, it's actually governed at the state right now, not at the local municipality. One of the things, I just got a call from the governor's office today they would like me to sit in on a roundtable with the governor to talk about what we're trying to do and how we're trying to prevent it, because she wants to understand what some of the town's solutions are to these things. And, you know, as they craft the law, the whole idea of a moratorium, it's a temporary pause until you can get the laws in place. You know, someone asked, why didn't we do it? I said, well, I already know what we want to do with our law. I said, but I'll also point out, governor moratoriums are easier to defend than town moratoriums. They have few more resources than we do to fight these mega corporations. So I'd rather just get the law updated. So the good news is, now that we've called the public hearing and proposed the local law, any applications that come in will be under the new laws, not the old. So with that said, I'll first open it up to town board members in case anyone has any more comments, and then we'll take comments from the public. Go ahead, I'll start from my.
Okay, well, I had a list of things that I'd like to see, and less than a dozen, but want to make sure that none of the land is used could be taken by an eminent domain, I'm sorry, for any data center project or related projects.
Well, so I mean, just to understand, we're the only ones here who can do that. If the state is going to do it, anything we pass here can't stop the state from eminent domain. Okay. So I don't know if that's a useful, I'll talk with Dan, but I don't know that that's useful to put in there.
Okay, another thing, increased buffers between the properties possibly. Noise coming from the data center would have to be less than and I don't have the number, a certain amount of decibels. I like the idea of the geothermal system. We talked about that a little bit. You already mentioned about installing transformers, at least twice as much power as they would need for this project. So it could, you know, so nearby developments could go in. Same thing with water. They need to supply water and sewer capacity twice as much. Would not want any, and I don't know how much we have control over this, no commuter or tax breaks for these facilities. So we get the full thing. Like to, you know, any of these facilities have a labor peace agreement, just like the cannabis shops all have throughout New York State. And for the construction of these facilities, that they have a PLA agreement, private labor agreement.
So one of the things, that last one's one of the ones I'll have to take a look as to whether we can require that. It might be able to do it through the actual CBA. So again, whether you can make that a law or whether you can CBA is Community Benefits Agreement. One of the things I'll note is that if any come in, it would be with a public hearing. So you'd be able to address each of them. I don't necessarily want to put in the double because, you know, again, if somebody comes in with 5 megawatts, we might want them to add 10, right? But if someone comes in at 50 megawatts, you know, adding an additional 35 megawatt transformer, I don't know that we need them to go all the way to 50. So, but, you know, the point is, on an individual basis, you can we could look at one and say, you know what, you need to put in double what's there.
These are just some of the ideas I came up with after the workshop.
Yep.
The other night. So
we'll make sure, well, obviously those are going to be in the minutes. So, Rob?
A number of states, as you alluded to, have had moratoriums on this for a year or two. I agree with you with all the incentives that we could put in to kind of protect our residents, to make sure we have good power from this, our water supply isn't lessened, and that we get some benefits from this. Jumping on what Mr. Stafford said about Comida and the tax breaks that they get, some of those things are very extensive, and I like to make sure that they don't get Comida breaks that really hurt us and help them as the developer of these projects in our community. That's all I have.
You know, so one of the things we could potentially do is, again, if one comes in, we get Comida actually here, talk to them about what are and are not. We would have to get Comida to sign off on, we can't dictate to Comida.
Right.
But we could get Comida to commit to what incentives they are or are not going to do, and then we can decide whether we approve it based on what they are or are not going to do.
That's a great idea.
And so that if there's too many incentives, we can say we're not going to do it because we're not seeing the benefit from those incentives.
Right.
Some of the other stuff that will come in, it's not just Comida, it could be Empire State Development. The advantage potentially of an Empire State Development. So the point is, if Empire State Development wants to, I guess it depends on what that incentive is as to, especially if it's something like where Empire State Development pays our local, pays the local taxes. Then we may decide, right? But like I said, we can decide on that as the case presents.
Yeah, I guess, one of my big things is that any power use that they're, pulling would come from clean energy supplies, such as, solar, wind, nuclear, geothermal is fine as well. Or if they could be part of the energy production solution, such as, installing, solar panels on their roofing, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think that latter is possible. The former, I don't think we can dictate to, I'm not sure we can dictate to the power company how the power is supplied and.
I agree. I do understand that we can't dictate that. However, you can often, outline where you want to purchase the energy from and which companies or organizations, and if we can put in preferences for clean energy, then I think that would be positive. If there's any screening or anything along those lines so that it can be as much green around the property and prevent any unsightly developments, that would be a benefit as well.
Yep. So for those who aren't aware, when we did the comprehensive land use plan update in 2019, we included something called buffering. And the idea is I've got a new use going in next to existing properties. And there's a minimum buffer size depending on the use. So for instance, an apartment, an industrial use going next to a residential use is going to be one of the bigger buffers. If it's industrial use going next to a commercial use, it's a smaller buffer. As part of that, we have done this many times on approvals, not for data centers, but on other approvals where there have been, they're going next to other properties and we require them to put in berms, foliage, sometimes like the green giant arborvitaes, multiple rows of them, that could all be part of a condition of an approval. So that is absolutely doable.
For me, I've been seeing some concerns in the community, and I think what is happening, there's a lot of information about data centers. They're thinking about the really big data centers, like they're called the hyperscale data centers. I don't think we even have the space for a hyperscale data center here at all. So what I think the type of applications we would get would be those like smaller scale and that can fit in any of our industrial areas.
I won't say any, like they were looking at 100 to the folks who were sniffing around, they were asking for 100 to 150 acre sites. So they are sizable sites.
Okay.
But you're still not to that hyperscale.
Yeah. So they're not yet. So there are, same as everybody else on the board have mentioned, I am definitely concerned about making sure that they're using sustainable technologies. There's a lot of new technology out there that's addressing a lot of the issues that they've probably known for years about data centers and how they use up a lot of energy and water. And we're seeing a lot of new technology to kind of mitigate all those things. And other than noise, I think I heard was an issue. And then of course, energy, water, and just making sure that everything is sustainable. If we have some way of making sure that when the applications come in, we have we have those stipulations in some way.
Yeah, so one of the things when they put it in, you can look at it, and that's one of the things, again, we can push back on them and say, you know, we'd like to see some sustainable idea, you know, and then they can present them. If they decide not to present them, then you can turn them down. And they can't go to a judge and say, well, we really are a benefit to the community. That's not something a judge can rule. A judge can rule whether they did or didn't mitigate a potential adverse impact, but not whether it's considered a benefit. That's solely our decision. All right, I will now open it up to the public. We've got a lot of people here. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to take a photo of all of you. And the reason I'm going to do that is if one ever comes in, I'm going to show them this photo and say, just so you know, there will be a lot of people at your public hearing if you want to come in.
A
So
lot more than this.
Yeah.
smile. All right. So I realize it's probably a little bit different than what you thought because, like I said, I don't know that some of the interviews that the people understood what we were trying to do. And then, like I said, I know a lot of people heard incentive zoning and thought we were trying to incent data centers to come here. That's not it at all. So is there anyone who wishes to speak? Coming up. Just introduce yourself and then let us know.
Hi, Joanna Lip. I'm just wondering if there are any impacts to like the environment. I've heard there can be a lot of heat generation, for example, and I wonder if there's any plans to mitigate that or if I just have the wrong information.
No, they can generate a good amount of heat, you know, so again, that gets back into how they do the cooling. Is it geothermal? You're gonna have a tough time heating up the core of the planet. One of the things that does happen, you know, so a lot of them use water cooling and so they go through a lot of water. That's especially problematic in some areas that don't have a lot of fresh water. Even though we do have a lot of fresh water, I'm still not interested in seeing them consume the amount of water that, especially when you get to the hyperscale. Again, we'd rather see a closed loop cooling system. If you're doing forced air, they can create a bit of a hotspot, but I'll say, you know, factories that have furnaces and other stuff like that, they generate a lot of heat as well. So it's something, you know, that when we can weigh that and, you know, we can tell them, you know, if they're putting a lot of heat out into the air, we can again go back and say, well, we'd like you to use a closed loop, you know, like a geothermal. They put in a bunch of vertical wells, they pump the fluid down, it essentially disperses the heat to the underground.
Thank you.
You bet.
I didn't catch your name. What was your name again? Joanna. Thank you.
And if I can just ask anyone that comes up, please make sure to use the little mic and bring it close
Yep.
so that anyone online can also hear.
Yep. I thought I saw another hand. Yep, coming up.
Rich Rowe. First, I want to thank the board for taking this on ahead of time rather than throwing a Hail Mary pass at the last minute. We've seen this happen before. And your comment about public hearing and you're going to need a lot more seats, right? Remember the
Right.
casino, the rezoning issues and everything else we've had this time
Right.
before. My question regarding the incentives, you know, if they need to improve the power, sewers and stuff like that. The cost that goes to them, does that also include the improvements to the roads, you know, that they have to tear up and all this other stuff? Or do they just pay for like the sewer upgrades, but the road upgrade is up to the town and the county?
I don't know what road, why would they need a road
Well,
upgrade?
if you got to replace a sewer or anything.
Yeah, so if the sewer is under a road, they would have to fix the road, yes.
Okay, all right,
Yep.
thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, sir.
Yep, coming up.
Hi, I'm Mary Fornataro. Question, because I've been reading about a lot of this, all the hanky-panky and all of the shenanigans that are happening all over the country. Some places have put moratoriums and tried to pass laws And what ends up happening is that the corporations then go to the board members, the council members, whatever the municipal body is, and they have them sign non-disclosure agreements. My question is, are you guys allowed to sign a non-disclosure agreement with a corporation that has business before you?
Not that I'm aware of. It seems that anytime someone, so we have done, I personally have, I've never signed one, but I have given them, you know, when we have people coming in speaking about potential projects, I tell them I won't make this public until you submit an application. But I will say if they give it to me in written form, it's subject to FOIL. Anytime there is a public document, it's subject to FOIL. But you know, the ethics codes, if those shenanigans are going on, that's absolutely a violation of ethics. I'll ask our town attorney if he can address that question from a legal standpoint.
I would agree with your last statement. And there's, if there was a non-disclosure agreement, it would probably be subject to public disclosure, and that would obviate the whole purpose of the agreement. So I don't think it's something that you're gonna have to worry about.
One of the things I will say, any agreement we do is on our town, it's on the agenda. We don't do any agreements. The town board authorizes me to sign agreements for the town. So that just doesn't cut it.
So Mary, I would never sign an agreement with some corporation to circumvent what we do here.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Anybody that knows me, I would.
But not everybody operates in the same
True.
playing field that Henrietta does.
Right.
As we
Agreed.
know.
Yeah.
I would also say that, you know, there's a lot of the decisions that are made that would have to be subject to open meeting law. Now, while some places may try to get around open meeting law, Henrietta has been very committed to being as open and transparent as possible.
That's what we want, transparency and so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
That's what I read on
Wait,
9 years.
I will definitely echo, I would definitely not do an NDA. I know what you're talking about. I was watching I'm doing some research and I saw it was happening in Texas apparently. And so we run things definitely different up here in New York State and Henrietta.
Hot Texas.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Texas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I guess I'll just add, you know,
Interesting.
pay attention to who you elect to office.
Yes.
This gentleman up front, and then you'll be next.
Hello, my name is Edward Campany. There are two court cases that I think have some bearing on this. The first one, Nolan versus California Coastal Commission, says that anytime you're looking for an exaction or a community benefit or something in exchange for approval, it has to be related to the problem caused by.
Yep.
So I think that that's pretty well covered. There's another case that takes it a little bit further that says it has to be roughly proportionate. In that, I think is Dolan versus the city of Tigard. So if the environmental impact can only be offset to the degree that it is caused, then what we're trying to do here that establishes a higher standard is something that can be challenged and probably would be. So I understand trying to set something to offset what is done, but that's as far as the law will allow it to go, as I understand it.
Your first name was Anthony?
Edward.
Edward. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we're aware of that. I will also point out, like, there are a number of towns in this region, including adjacent to Henrietta, that require incentive zoning, community benefits for almost everything they do. Shockingly, no one has challenged that in court yet. You know, the point being, a lot of these places don't want to go to some place that they're going to fight heavily in court. Not the scale, again, when you get to the hyperscale, with the potential revenue, assuming they can find a revenue for AI, that they'll, you know, that they will do that fight. But we understand that stuff can still be challenged, but the point is, Whether we do or don't approve it is not. We might have to scale back. They might be able to win and scale back the community benefit. We're up against this right now with the University of Rochester. They want to put in a small amount, and we don't think it's commensurate with the incentive they're receiving. So we're in that battle right now.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do also have
Lady
folks
up front.
online as well.
Okay, thank you, Becky. I will go online next, and then I'll come back to the room. But go ahead.
Shirley Wright again. I don't have a question. I just want, when this is all being looked at, that we be cognizant of our environment and our wildlife. Henrietta has expanded a lot, and I see that our wildlife is being driven out. We have to remember that they are part of our community too. And no matter what big business wants, we have to look at what we want as a community and how we want to preserve our life and our lifestyle for our children and grandchildren. So please think about our land, our trees, our gullies, and our wildlife. Thank you.
You bet. I will note we do, although I will point out it's not big business who gets to decide to come in. It's the property owners. Now, often the big business buys those properties. But, you know, in terms of development, we don't have the rights to take away someone's development rights. We could purchase those development rights, but with the tax rate that Henrietta has with our tax levy, we don't have the money to do that. Pittsford does that to some extent. A couple other towns do that. But, you know, if a property owner wishes to develop their property, they have to do it within the framework of the zoning that they're in. But we can't tell them, sorry, we want to keep your land forever wild. We don't have that authority. That's an illegal taking because they purchased that property. They have the right to develop it within the confines of the zoning law. So I'll just note that a lot of people think it's us bringing in big business. We haven't brought in any big business. It's the property owners who do that. So.
That said, Henrietta does look to do what we can to protect as much green space as possible. And we have secured quite a few properties for parkland as well as for some of the different farmland protections.
Yeah, we have preserved in the past 8 years since the update to the comprehensive land use plan, we have preserved probably about, I think we're approaching 600 acres of farmland, maybe 700, and another 300 to 400 acres of parkland or open land. So we have been doing that with what we can do. But like I said, we cannot force, we can incent. So one of the things that we have is for some of these businesses, if they want to put something in above what zoning goes for, we do have a means where they can essentially buy the property rights from someone else. So we had that for a subdivision wanted to go in, they wanted more homes than they were allowed. So they approached the neighboring farmer and paid him to put a conservation easement on his 50-acre farm. So, excuse me, it's an agricultural conservation easement, which means he can still farm it. He can put up, if he needs a silo, he can put a structure there, but it either has to be farming or vacant. It can't be developed. So we do have a bunch of stuff in there that we put in place in 2019 as part of our comprehensive land use plan update to encourage that conservation, but we can't force it. There were a number of hands raised. Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, whoever that was. I do have Matt here virtually with his hand raised.
Hi, can you hear?
Yes. Hello. Matt, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Matt Ferguson. I live in Henrietta, obviously. And I actually work in data center construction. And I'd like to lend my voice saying that I know firsthand that these suck, and I think we should do everything we can to make sure they don't come here. They offer little to no jobs. An insane amount of our day is spent trying to ship people in from all over the country to do the job, and then they're miserable the whole time and they leave. They create an insane amount of infra noise. If you're not familiar, that's extremely low, non-human hearable noise that will affect you physiologically and devastate local wildlife. They're horrible for pollution. They constantly contaminate the well water for anybody who's not lucky enough to be on the city water when they do their blasting to prepare for construction. Not to mention the strain on the power grid. I mean, every time we get a stiff freeze, we have power outages and our G&E is scrambling. So I can't imagine straining that system already. Just seems like a terrible idea. So I understand that you have to work within the confines of the law and everything you mentioned about zoning and what we're able to do and not able to do. But yeah, I just wanted to voice that I don't think we should have them anywhere near us. If we can, anything and everything we can do to fight them legally, we should.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
In the back.
Hi, everyone. Rachel Sherman, resident of Henrietta. I can meander, so I have some bullet points to stay on track. First, I want to thank our town council and our town supervisor for proactively confronting this issue. So the first thing is I would ask you to consider, so, I've read your proposed laws. I have great respect for the town attorney. I want to mention I'm here in my individual capacity because I do wear a number of different hats around Henrietta. But I'm here as an individual, as a mother, as a human being who loves this town and loves the people and the environment in this town. So in the findings, I wonder if you might consider reciting noise pollution and noise pollution is of many forms. The gentleman who just spoke online, I didn't catch his name, Matt something, talked about those lower frequencies that can also interrupt, kind of other issues. So there's a lot of unintended consequences, I think, with noise pollution. So I would love it if that was recited in the findings. Also, excessive carbon emissions, because this is going to these data centers increase carbon emissions in your town.
I'm just curious how.
How? By drawing more electricity, like a ton more electricity.
But if it's all solar, then that's not the case. Is that correct?
Well, that'd be excellent.
Yeah. Okay.
Go for it. Solar. I have a solar person I want to introduce you to, by the way, Mr. Schultz. So then I have down here, we're already seeing regular power outages in Henrietta. I'm just curious, anyone lost power this summer? Okay, I don't know, about half the room, 40% of the room. The unreliability of our power grid would also likely worsen. And I know people who had to throw away refrigerated items. I mean, hundreds of dollars of freezer and refrigerated items. I looked into buying a whole house generator, and those are not cheap. They're like the size of a small car or used car, $15,000 to $20,000 for a whole house generator that would then have to operate off of natural gas. I have a hybrid system, natural gas and a heat pump. So, we're trying our best to reduce our carbon footprint, and that would worsen it. I have a request about the incentive, the data center incentive zoning law. I wonder if it goes as far as it can go. And I understand you're operating within the confines of the local law, but I think, if you were to do some surveying and have more public hearings, you would hear that the sentiment of this community is to take the maximally protective position with respect to restricting data centers in our town. Only 3% of the world's water is fresh water, and we can't mess with that. Only 0.5% is potable. And some, data centers take 1 million gallons a day, and that's not even like the largest ones. So our fresh water deserves maximum protection. The other question or the request I have for you as well is to consider with your leadership position, with the roundtable, Supervisor Schultz, that you'll be a part of. I know you have good standing in the county as a whole as a supervisor. I know Henrietta's viewed as a leader when it comes to many of these issues. I saw Henrietta's work to bring in the power station that you mentioned, cited in Monroe County's comprehensive plan draft. So I think there's a lot of credibility here at this table among this leadership. And so what I would ask of you to consider in using that leadership with the governor and others is to advocate for a collective policy framework, because all of the concerns that anybody in this room has or online has, we can raise them here in Henrietta, but my voice is not as strong in Shiloh or Riga or Rush, places where I do not live, but where negative externalities from data centers would affect us as if they were in West Henrietta, right? So I think it's really important to have a regional voice, a regional plan on all of this. I do want to reiterate, Mr. Stafford, Ms. Safranek, the things that you brought up about clean energy, geothermal. I want to say here to that. And finally, I want to commend to you, there's a book by Roy Swan called Positive Sum Capitalism. It just came out. And it really is about taking the broad view about the negative externalities that companies are imposing on people. And so it may not just be the road and the water, and the broader ripples can be determined and quantified. Ironically, there are AI tools that are that can do a lot of that. And all companies, not just data centers, have to be responsible for the extractive nature of their businesses, because we have a future of children. My 16-year-old is here. Can you just wave your hand, dear? She thought about talking, but she would rather sit there. The proverb is true that we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children. So I ask that you also keep that in mind. And thank you again for this important work.
You bet.
Thanks, Rachel.
You're Rachel.
One of the things I will note is that I do hear, and I'm not saying who folks necessarily hear, but one of the things I do find interesting, because you kind of mentioned it, the AI research that was doing some of the stuff. I hear a lot of people who use Siri, Alexa, they use all the different AI tools and then complain about data centers, which then starts to take on a NIMBY kind of mentality. So,
But can I tell you?
No, let me finish, please. So, like I said, I guess I just also say that for those people who really feel strongly that AI shouldn't be around, part of what drives that is the demand.
110%. And I would say we have to do a better job educating our youth and educating our populace about the use. There's a national nonprofit that there's a recent study, sorry, it's out of Stanford, I think, or California. I can get it for you if you want, but it says for every 100-word prompt that someone gives to AI, it uses about 1.7 liters of water. Mm-hmm. So think about that. If you're asking stupid questions and generating ridiculous images, and no one should be doing that. Right. And everybody should have a policy to be mindful about that. And by the way, I'm on the policy committee at my school board, and it's something that I'm hoping that the policy committee will address, just about the education piece and to look at all of those sort of ramifications. But,
and I'll note that I don't use any of those. I don't do AI prompts. I don't, unfortunately what you're finding is I think the next generation will. The other thing I'll point out is that, going back to it, as you get into it, the other side of it is we've solved other problems. And by that, I just mean that if they need data centers, let's find out a way to do it that don't generate all the issues in terms of again, they use the geothermal cooling, they maybe use solar energy or other types of power generation that they come up with, whether it's quantum computing or other types of computing, stuff that doesn't generate all the low frequency noise. There are ways to solve the problems. The issue is, one of the things I was just talking about this earlier today, I've yet to find a deregulation that has made the country better. And so I think in terms of some of that stuff, we need to see better regulation of capitalism. Capitalism is by far the best economic system in the world, but it can't be unregulated, because when it becomes unregulated, you get the massive wealth disparities. You get, the locust mentality of, I'm going to use up the environment, I'm going to leave an empty shell, and then I'm going to write it off against my income and move somewhere else and destroy that area. And so that's the kind of stuff we have to avoid. But like I said, going back to it, if I just caution people again, if everybody's using AI and then says we don't want data centers, that's kind of, it's more NIMBY than real policy.
I guess I'll go on the record then just to say my use of AI is very sparse
Yeah,
and completely unintentional when it does happen, for example, on a Google search that you don't put -AI or whatever. So I take your point, and then I try not to live hypocritically. I try to live according with my values.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you'll be next.
Hi, I'll be very quick. My name's Elizabeth Gruner, and I'm a town resident. And I want to appreciate the people who came before me who talked about the issue of sound pollution, particularly infrasound. And incidentally, I just want to point out that a lot of us are trying to do our best to avoid AI, and I have a lot of students at our age who are conscientious objectors to AI. Many of them feel strongly that AI is being forced on them by our generation.
Yeah.
So we're all the generations are looking at one another and saying, you're doing this. And instead, I do think it is the companies themselves that are trying to make it inevitable for us to use their products. But I did want to say about infrasound, which I heard you all mention trying to incentivize positive benefits to our community in terms of electricity, in terms of water, trying to make sure that their footprint was neutral in terms of those things. But I didn't hear how we're going to neutralize the impact of sound.
Do you know what is generating the infrasound?
I do not know.
And do we know how it's measured?
I do not know. But I did want to point out that my understanding is that this can cause a number of negative effects in humans and in animals. That for humans, a lot of us will experience sleep deprivation, insomnia, headaches, internal ear pressure, and anxiety. And that's not just from the sound that we can hear, but it's specifically from that sound that is beneath our awareness. The sound can also have really negative effects on wildlife, on birds, on livestock, on our dogs, on our cats. So I wanted to ask if there's any way that you can put into this understanding, into this policy, that they can mitigate their pollution of our sound.
I don't know. I'll have to look into that. As someone who's worked in a computer center, let's see, 50 some odd years, I don't have any of those adverse effects. So that's why I'm just curious, what is generating that sound? Is it the cooling system? Is it allegedly the computers themselves? I need to understand that before we can mitigate it. The other thing we have to do is have a means to measure it. So if anybody knows that, feel free to send supervisor@henriettany.gov if you've got any information on that. One of the things I hear, not disputing the adverse effects of infrasound, I just don't know. A lot of times what happens with this stuff is we hear, oh, here's a real adverse effect, and I don't see it tied to the particular thing. Again, I'm not denying that there is or is not. I don't know. I saw this in an area that was where I did have some expertise, had to do with color temperature of lights and things like that in the diurnal cycles and things like that. That's one I knew about. We set our light policies when we upgraded all of our lights to be at the brightest threshold we could be without disrupting animals' cycles. So, you know, you start to, you know, to do that though, we had to have an understanding of color temperature of lights and the different point intensities of LEDs and things like that. So again, I've heard the infrasound. I don't know what generates it. I don't know for a fact that it's there. I don't know if it's only old data centers and the newer ones don't do it. That's
The
I don't
article
know.
I just cited is from June of this year.
Yeah, if you want to send me that article and I can dig
Certainly I
into
will.
it.
Certainly I will.
As an engineer, I geek out on that stuff. So
Matt, who worked at a data center, may well still be hearing, and maybe he can fill us in on a little bit of this. But I just want to finish up by saying that, you know,
sure.
not different sounds, different lights, different smells, different foods affect all people differently. And so what may not have affected you might well affect a lot of people who live in.
Right, but I'm just saying there's a lot of people who work in computer centers. You'd think there'd be a lot more issues if it was just from the components themselves. So that's what I'm trying to, you know, is it a threshold thing?
They may not be aware.
That beyond, right, but if you're talking about the adverse effects, you're talking about, you start to see some. So like I said, I want to understand this, and it could be a threshold thing, right? So is you start to get more and more around you, at some point, does it cross a threshold where it starts to have the adverse effects? So when you get to the, you know, the data centers that I've worked in, they don't hit that. But when I start to get to these, you know, 100-acre data centers, maybe it's crossed a threshold. You certainly see that with sound wave in terms of like impacts on the ear. It you know, in a lot of the stuff, it's not just volume, it's persistence. Some of it has to do with, you know, the amount of distortion that's in, you know, there's a lot of things that go into what creates the adverse effect. So in order to be able to mitigate that, we'd have to understand what it is we're mitigating. So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yep, coming up.
I'm Noreen Reardon, and pretty much everything I wanted to talk about's been covered. Thanks so much for getting ahead of this. I just wanted to mention that a lot of these data centers are built in areas where lower income people live, and being cognizant of property values. When there are vibrations, people feel that there is sound pollution. Some people, you know, they can't sell their house if they wanted to move because of these problems. And so I think that's something, if you could set a number, you were talking about decibel levels and that sort of thing. I don't know how they measure that when they're getting ready to build these centers, but I think there should be a number. So thank you.
Yeah, so, you know, a couple things in terms of, again, having been involved in computer centers for years, nothing, like I said, nothing to this scale. Like when we were building the hockey rink for RIT, from a temporary sound standpoint, there was a lot more disturbing there because they have to pile drive. That rink has to be really level and can't shift, right? Data centers don't have that issue. So from a construction standpoint, there's nothing unusual about it. Now, maybe there is some deep drilling if we're requiring them to do geothermal wells. They're going to have to be vertical wells to you know, but like we did those when we put in our library, right? So from a construction standpoint, there's nothing, in fact, I would argue there's less impact from the construction than the construction of other industries.
Yeah, I was referring to operational sounds.
Yeah, so from an operations side of standpoint, again, the big thing in those data centers that generate the noise are the cooling fans. The computers themselves don't generate much noise at all that I'm aware of. So like I said, if somebody knows something different, I'd love to see some papers on that because I'm not aware of anything. The big thing gets into the cooling fans, but this also goes back to if I'm doing geothermal, I'm not blowing that air out into the environment. I've got so my house is geothermal. We're not gas heat, we're all geothermal. And it basically, there's a pump that pumps it through a loop in the ground, exchanges the heat. There's a compressor inside the house. The compressor does generate some noise when it kicks in, but I guarantee it's all contained in my house. But like I said, as you start to look at that stuff, that's why I want to understand if it's all from the cooling fans external. Then when we go to geothermal, to go back to she left, but to go back to her point, that could be something we do from, as we understand this, is that we require that they be geothermal because that also gets rid of the sound.
And maybe I'll get rid of them totally because it's pretty expensive.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I do have another hand raised virtually as well.
Okay, and then we'll come back here internally.
All right, you ready for me?
I am.
I have Corey here with their hand raised.
Yes, my name is Corey Kesselring. Thank you guys so much for having this public hearing and for laying everything out perfectly. Steve, I had talked to you on the phone earlier where you gave me the same spiel, and I really greatly appreciate that. My question for you folks is, so dozens of these large data centers around the country have reportedly been using more resources than they've been allowed to, along with being the cause of polluting local land and water. We've kind of talked about that a little bit here today, but do you intend to include hefty fines in the zoning approval of these data centers for if or when they violate limitations in water consumption, pollution, or electricity usage? And if currently that's not possible to do, what would need to be done to make that possible?
So, I mean, the big thing you would do is you would set the size of the connections. So if I have a 6-inch water main, that there's a maximum amount of flow rate that can come through that. We've worked with we don't do our own water. Monroe County Water Authority does the water. I've been in discussions with Steve Savage from the Monroe County Water Authority. Together we set that threshold. It's actually a pretty low threshold for what constitutes large water usage. To date, there are 130 businesses in the area that use that high water level. They do pay a higher rate for their water. High water users pay a higher rate per gallon, as I understand it, than normal users. Or I don't know if it's per gallon or per month, but they do pay more. There is a surcharge, as I understand it, for high water usage. But again, the water comes in at a particular pressure. It's a particular known flow rate. So I'm not sure how these folks are using more resources than they're allowed. Same thing with the electrical connection. RG&E hooks up at a specific amperage and voltage. So you can't really draw more wattage than what is on there, or else breakers blow. So I'm not sure how that's happening, other than, is it, if it's true, and I just say that because sometimes reports get exaggerated. But if it's true, it's probably some back channel deal that they made, and whether the municipality was or was not involved in it, I don't know. But I just don't see how they could potentially use more water than what can fit through that pipe, or more electricity that can come down the wire. So I don't really see that as a concern. In terms of fines, we go after with the maximum amount of fines that we can. If it's an unintentional violation, that's, we're going to go with the lesser fine. If it's intentional and repeated, we're going to go for a maximum fine. I will say we're constrained by the courts. All fines have to go through the court unless they accept them without challenging them. But to answer your question, yes, we would we would try to find those who were knowingly violating their approvals.
If this was approved by special use permit, we could also
Revoke the special
revoke
use
the
permit.
special use permit.
The challenge you run into there is if a company has a significant investment, they can often fight that in court. Is that correct, Dan?
That is correct. So that's extreme,
Right.
shutting them down by revoking special
Yeah.
use permit. But if it really gets to the stage where it goes to court, it's kind of up to the court to fashion the appropriate remedy.
Right.
Okay.
I'd just like to lay all the stuff out. I don't want to blow smoke up people's clothing. Because, there are realities that we have to work within. So I just don't want to make fake promises and that we wouldn't be able to deliver.
Gotcha.
We had another, no, sorry, there was someone, yeah, gentleman, yep, in the aisle first. Yep.
I'm Robert K. Scott. I reside at 4501 Main Street in Hemlock, town of Livonia, Livingston County. My concerns are not like adequacy of the John Street pump station or floodplain impacts on East River Road or noise impacts to local residents. My two primary concerns are the power consumption for the facility and where it's coming from and what it's potentially going to do to my household power charges. And the second concern is the adequacy of the water supply, not just what the Monroe County Authority has for the pipe in the lake, but the conveyance system from Webster to here, and whether it also involves in any way, shape, or form the use of the upland sources, because the two systems are interconnected. You've already answered my first question. Has the town had inquiries? I think one of the things you could consider is local law would mandate specifically and require an environmental impact statement under the provisions of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, so that you could examine the region-wide potential impacts, not just the local impacts to Henrietta, but the region-wide impacts that are possibly multi-county impact to water supply and particularly the power sources and the adequacy of their supply and what improvements are needed. And explain whether multiple sources are needed. And I think that the only way to answer all these questions that have been asked with the detail that the public wants is through an environmental impact statement process. So if it's possible to put that in your law, that would be an assurance for me. Pardon?
I just want to let you know, I mean, depending on the amount of disturbance and stuff, it moves up with certain categories. And there is no question, if we look at and say this is going to be a significant impact, then we issue what's called a positive declaration. Now it's reverse logic here. A negative declaration means we're declaring that there are no remaining unmitigated adverse impacts. A positive declaration means there are, in which case they then do have to create an environmental impact study. Yeah. So I just wouldn't want to do that blanket because again, we set the threshold for these data centers pretty low. And so let's say they go with geothermal, so there's no water consumption. Well, then why would we require them to do an environmental impact study on the water usage if the only water they're using is drinking fountains, right?
So I would, rather than maybe specifically listing it as mandated in your local law, maybe somehow or other just mention it.
We can mention it, although like I said, it is part of seeker currently. That is required if a positive declaration is issued, they have to go to an environmental impact study.
My second question was, or whatever, is that what's the timeline to adopt the local law? And then the last one was, you mentioned earlier that you can't prohibit such a project, but I asked the question, if you were to amend your comprehensive plan and list projects that are innocuous or that you don't like landfills in the town of Henrietta or like land spreading, could you also list data centers as a prohibited project in a amended comprehensive plan? And then that would give you a basis to,
I don't think you
not
can list,
deal with it?
I don't think you can list them as prohibited.
Can your attorney answer that question?
As a general rule, you can't zone out a use for an entire municipality. That's as a general rule. I'm not saying that it's not something that could or could not apply to data centers. Certainly, the regulations that are being considered by the board right now are a step that should hold water if it is challenged. Much better off with that than implementing a ban only to find via a strong corporate challenge that we should have tried to regulate rather than ban.
I will note that sometimes the state will provide, and it's possible that the governor could put that in, and if that's the case, we can then come back and revisit and decide whether we have a ban. And to give you an example, the cannabis, when they put in the cannabis laws, they gave municipalities the option to opt out of dispensaries. So that's an example where you can ban something, but it's because state law allows us to do it. There isn't anything currently in the state law that would allow us to ban a data center. If they give us that capability, then we can come back and revisit and decide whether we do want to ban or if we're happy with what we've got. But you know, again, in looking at this, we've believed that we're better off having something that is very defensible in court than to try to go the ban route and potentially have it overturned because, the types of folks who are coming in with this, I'll give you an example. Jared Kushner's father. So the father-in-law of the president's daughter has a company that's putting in these data centers. I know that'll be shocking to you that the Trump administration is taking advantage of family ties, but so as you can imagine, they probably have some significant legal weight behind them. That's the type of companies that you're up against with these. So I wouldn't want to put a crack in that door that a ban potentially gives them to get it overturned. Others? There was somebody else over. Yep, go ahead. Oh, no, sorry. You'll be next.
My name is Don Gasmano. I believe you mentioned that the town can regulate, up to 5 megawatts data centers if they.
That was solar arrays.
Oh, solar arrays?
Yeah.
So there's a limit though on how large.
No. What I'm saying is when they go bigger than that, it's up to the state. The town has no say in it.
So I was just wondering, if we approve a data center and then a year down or 2 years, they want to double or triple the size of it and hence the power and everything else. Does the town have any say in that, or does that become a state issue now?
No, so that will depend on the actions of the governor and what they do and don't put into place. At some point, right now, the data center, I think it's 50 or 100 megawatts.
Okay.
But the way the key is how do we write the approval? What we would do is when we write the approval, it would be for a 5 megawatt, 10 megawatt data center. And so that would be the cap. If they want to double it, they would have to come back for a new public hearing, a new round of incentive zoning to enlarge it. That's assuming one was ever approved. But that's how it works. You write the approval for that specific size. Then if they want to enlarge it, they would have to come back.
But if it goes over the 15 megawatts and becomes a state issue, do we still have a say?
Again, that depends on what the governor is going to do. For solar arrays, the answer is no. When they put in these, 20, 30 megawatt solar arrays, the local municipalities do not have a say in it. And nothing we do here, we get our authority from the state. We cannot override the state's authority. So that becomes a moot point. Now, again, with that said, we don't have an open area of land that can support a 100 megawatt compute facility
Using today's technology.
using today's technology.
That will change in years.
It potentially what you're up against, but it will and it won't. Because, you know, it's not you get to some of the physical size, but again, the amount of power draw, we're much closer to the limits of physics than when computing first started and you had, you know, the doubling that was going on for a long time. You know, now they've got to come up with a different wavelength of light to etch or go to a completely different thing like a qubit, you know, quantum computing or some other in order to really push the threshold. So it is possible, but again, it's a rather moot point because nothing we put in this law can prevent that unless the governor gives us that ability to, and I'd say it's the governor working with the legislature, right? It would have to be a state law that gives us that authority to regulate that.
Yeah, so I guess I would ask, if you're talking to the governor and everything, to allow towns, if they've approved something and companies want to expand, to allow towns to still have say on it and not lose.
It's funny you should mention that. One of our resolutions is specifically about a town bill of rights that says allow towns to retain home rule, do not trample towns' local zoning. We're seeing this with the Office of Cannabis Management. Next meeting, we're going to have to approve a special use permit for a cannabis dispensary at the old, if you go far enough back, it was a Howard Johnson's. But it's right near the new Mary Carriola school that's going to come in. We denied it. The state said, no, because the school isn't there yet, it's allowed. They gave them the proof and they basically told us, you will approve the special use permit. We don't have a say in the matter. Now, I will say that the good news is that the folks who are coming in, they feel bad. They were never informed that we objected to it. Office of Cannabis Management didn't tell them. And they're going to work with us. They're going to put restrictions on where their signage can go so that you can't see their signage from Mary Carriola school. But it's a problem to us that the state is running roughshod over our local zoning. And there's an association called the New York Association of Towns, of which the 933 towns, I don't know if all of them are members, but certainly a large percentage of them. And they will be lobbying the legislature, they call it the AOT Bill of Rights, to try to prevent that. It's the three largest areas, or the two biggest areas where they're doing it are the large scale solar and the cannabis, Office of Cannabis Management. It's interesting, as we were talking about, the cannabis should be like the liquor authority. And yes, the liquor authority has more, they supersede our stuff. But again, if somebody wants to extend their premises for a liquor authority, they can't do, the application requires them to submit evidence of local approval. So that's why, again, the restaurant that was here had not applied for their liquor permit, because before they did that, they have to show that it's okay for them to serve alcohol there. That's how it should be with the cannabis management. Unfortunately, it's not. That's how it should be with data centers and the solar arrays. Unfortunately, again, below a certain size, it is. Above a certain size, it comes under the Public Service Commission. It's actually who it comes under for the solar arrays, and that's when it's problematic. So, Becky, did we have any more online?
None with hands raised at this time.
All right. Do we have more in-house? Yep, come on up.
Hello, my name is Kevin Eckert. I did have a question about zoning. So I'm not familiar with how zoning works in Henrietta, but would a company hypothetically be able to apply the term to have like land rezoned to industrial zoning, or how does that, or how would that process work, and how would the local law apply to that?
Yeah, so the local law doesn't address that. Anyone can apply to be rezoned. It is that's another one where the burden of proof essentially is on the applicant, not the town. So we can look at it and say, you know what, we think this runs contrary to the long-term goals of the town, denied. They have no legal recourse in that regards. So if now, right now, what we're looking at is, again, it would only be in an industrial zone. So there aren't many open industrial lands left. My predecessor had a proposal on the table to rezone, what was it, 400, 600 acres of farmland. My very first meeting where the three of us were in, we shot that thing down. If you remember the Southeast Quadrant Regis, it was completely wrong, would have completely changed the character of Henrietta. So there is not, where there is still available industrial land is south of RIT. So it's mostly between Bailey Road and Lehigh Station Road. And part of the reason, to be honest, why there's still a bunch of land available there is because we've been out of power for 5 years. We've had 3 or 4 businesses want to come in and they couldn't build because they couldn't get the power. There is one parcel that extends south to Brooks Road. Although that one is limited use industrial, it's stuff that doesn't, it has to be things that don't generate a lot of traffic or a lot of impact on the surrounding properties. So like I said, there just isn't a lot of space. I honestly, that one site is likely the only space that I see ever becoming a data center.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Anyone else? Is that a hand raised in the back? All right, come on up.
Hello, my name is Susanna Sherman. I will be a senior next year at Rush Henrietta. And I'd just like to say that myself, among many of my teens, are like very concerned we've seen what data centers do. We're very concerned for what could happen in our community. So I'd just like to thank you for your being serious about this and hope you continue to look into it to make sure if they are to be built, they're to do so in the safest way possible to preserve our environment and community.
We appreciate that. Hey, can we get her more applause than her mom? Not to make it a contest or anything, Rachel, but you know. Yeah, that's right. Anyone else?
To say they both live on my street.
Anyone else? So just someone had asked the schedule. Anytime it's a zoning change, we hold a public hearing in case we have to modify the law. We will take a look into the infrasound aspect if there's something we can put in there. But then, so 3 weeks from now will be there'll be another public hearing. And then we'll make a decision at that time. Now, one of the decisions could be that we're gonna postpone a little further. But if we think it's ready to get in, to be honest, I'd rather have it in and then come back and modify it later if we come up with better ideas, because as I've said before, I don't want someone to, we decide not to put it in and then someone slips an application in. I'd rather get it in now, even if we don't have the full protections that we might want. And then we can figure out how to handle the sound issue as we understand that better. And there's no reason we can't modify the law in the future. And as I said before, depending on what the governor puts in place, if there's something that gives us the ability to further regulate, we can take a look at, whether we want to take advantage of what the new regulations out of the state are going to be. So, for those who aren't aware, Henrietta is very progressive on our green infrastructure. We have a very strong advocacy group, the Color Henrietta Green, a number of whom their members are sitting here in the audience tonight. They've also started, through their efforts, we created a sustainability committee. And, we are was it silver? Bronze, working towards silver. If you haven't noticed, there's 2 new power EV charging stations going in outside. For the number of years, we've been hosting originally it was on the RIT campus. Last year we moved it here, EV car charging station. Our farmland protection with the solar arrays is actually, I spoke at a meeting in Batavia on it for other towns. They really wanted to understand what we're doing. We've spoken in Albany and in Washington, D.C. Again, what we're doing is leading the way. It's helped keep farms alive. When you look at the array, it generates green energy. The revenue to that farmer helps keep those local farms alive. The one farmer is growing, I think it's something like 7,000 mums in the rows between the arrays. He can do that because there's a large fence around that keeps the deer out. A lot of this stuff, we added solar arrays to the top of the building here. We're looking at, we did geothermal heating in the library. We've done a lot of stuff in that regards. We are very concerned about our environment, and not having a data center that's going to destroy that environment is important to us as well. So we thank you for your time, and at this point I'm going to close this session of the public hearing, but as I mentioned, it will stay open for the next town board meeting. So I'm closing this session of the public hearing for the proposed local law to enact Chapter 72 and amend Chapter 295 of the Henrietta Town Code to regulate the location of data centers. We have one last public hearing. It's for the proposed local law to amend the zoning code of the town of Henrietta to provide additional amenities and incentives for incentive zoning and to clarify ambiguities in the mixed use overlay tables in section 295 appendix A. So what we're looking at here, let me first touch on the ambiguities. We have in the incentive zoning tables, there's 3 mixed use overlay districts. One is the mixed use redevelopment area. So this is the area that covers a lot of our, what I call our tired retail areas. So Marketplace Mall, Jefferson Plaza, Southtown Plaza. And that is a lot of what you see again are some complementary uses. The idea of that incentive mixed use in the incentive zoning that's involved there is to encourage businesses to redevelop existing buildings rather than break new ground. Especially if it's a long-term empty building. And so one of the things that we ran into is a little bit of confusion in terms of the definition for medical centers, because that is a very broad range. So we split it up into medical center small, which includes things like urgent care centers, individual doctors' offices, things like that, and medical centers large, which also includes hospitals, like the orthopedic center at the mall, things like that. So that's one of the things we clarified. Sometime back when we introduced incentive zoning, we have in the categories, it's a chart, it has all the uses, it has the 3, so it's mixed use redevelopment area. There's a mixed use redevelopment corridor, which is East Henrietta Road. And again, that's some of our oldest retail suburban plaza, for instance. It was along that corridor. And then the last one is the mixed use employment area. That's south of RIT. The idea there is a lot of people want to live near where they're going to work. And so the idea with that mixed use is I could have apartment complexes next to office parks. So anyway, in those charts, it says, you know, it might have an X, which basically means it's not an allowed use, or if it has an S, it means it's allowed by special use permit. We added something for that it's only available as what's called a complementary use and incentive zoning, and it says S plus. However, nowhere in the chart does it say what S plus means. It does in the code, but not in the chart. So we're fixing that. A couple of the actual changes we're making, we're proposing to make, I should say. One of them has to do in the mixed use redevelopment corridor, and I will note that in the law, it currently says area, it's supposed to be corridor, because some of the stuff, the area again is the stuff at Marketplace Mall. The corridor is over on East Henrietta Road. There has been a long time request for a burned dairy at the location of the former Growmore Farms. For those who don't know, the former Growmore Farms was sold. And previously, under the previous owner, Burned Dairy tried to come in. They tried to do it under a use variance. Use variances have a very high threshold to overcome. And one of those is you have to show that you weren't able to sell the property under the normal uses. Well, when they came in for that variance, Burned Dairy was a little upset to find out that the owner had never tried to sell the property at all. So how can you get a use variance that says I couldn't sell it when you never put it up for sale? They never came back. The new owner has come back and asked, is there any way to do it through the mixed use redevelopment corridor? And as of right now, that answer is no, but we were looking at that might make a good complementary use. And so that's what this local law, one of the things also in this local law that we would propose is that that would switch from a, just in the corridor, from a not allowed to a through incentive zoning. And so they would have to then provide some community benefit. One of the things that this is also touching on with incentive zoning is we didn't have a catch-all for some of this stuff. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example of one that I'm trying to incent in the mixed-use revitalization area. For those who aren't aware, we lost Price Right. They moved out of Southtown Plaza. The owners of Southtown Plaza I've been on the record as saying they're horrible. They don't upkeep their property and they're losing businesses right and left. They lost Price Right. And as I've been told by a number of residents who shop there, we love Wegmans, we just can't always afford it. And we need the affordability of Price Right. Well, we're trying to get Price Right back in. A lot of the other places, they can't afford the rent there. So then we're looking at, are there things we can do to incent the plaza owner to bring in a Price Right and maybe give them a reduced rent by greater density, other stuff like that. The thing from an incentive, nowhere in there can we do is that the community benefit is bringing in Price Right. Another one we've been trying to do is I've been trying to get a grocery store on the west side of town. Nowhere, there's nothing in our incentive zoning that says, well, that's going to benefit our residents. Let's, as part of that community benefit, is somebody is willing to put in that plaza or that grocery store on the west side of town. And so we're looking to put in that catch-all that basically says, you know, if the town board deems that this is something that would be to the overall benefit of the town, that can also be a community benefit. And to tie it all together, one of the things we've talked about is I've said this to the folks at Burned Dairy, what I'd want you to consider if we're going to allow that, I want you to find a location on the west side of town and put one in on the west side of town as well, because we don't have any grocery stores over there. We've got a lot of development in the Riverton area in surrounding acreage, and there's just no grocery stores near there. So one of the things why you're less likely to get someone to go over there is in that area, we have something called the East River Road Seeker Mitigation Funds. And what that has to do with is East River Road had a lot of traffic issues. So we created the Seeker Mitigation Fund, and all new businesses that go in, they have to pay $800 per vehicle that they're going to put on the road towards this fund. And that's what helped pay for all of the recent improvements to East River Road. We built it even though we hadn't collected all the money. We essentially, the county, for lack of a better way to put it, they funded it, understanding that they're going to get paid back as these other businesses come in. So it's a little bit more expensive to open up a store on that side of town than it is on this side of town. And so again, that's part of that, why you're trying to incent folks to go over there, or a store. And so where they're looking at is at there were a number of the locations that they could choose from. They reached out to the property owners. The one that they're leaning towards is at the intersection of Lehigh Station and Erie Station and East River Road. So southeast corner, and their funds would actually go towards improving that intersection. So if you've been through that intersection, there's problems with the way it's laid out. And so we've been working with Monroe County DOT and New York State DOT to improve that intersection, including signalized crosswalks to get from Riverton. Riverton has internal pathways that come right up to that intersection, but there's no way to get over to the plaza that's at the northeast corner. There'd be a crosswalk across the southern part of the intersection, which would get to this new grocery store, and then a crosswalk from there across the eastern portion to get up to that plaza that's already existing. So that's what we're looking at. In order for that to happen, we would need to amend the zoning with regards to the additional amenities and incentives. So that's what this law is looking to do. And with that, I'll open it up first to questions or comments from the town board.
I asked them earlier.
Yep.
I don't have any questions. I think it's something that we've discussed.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Any questions or comments from the town? A little less controversial than data centers. So, all right. Anything online? So again,
No,
same
that's-
thing. We will keep this, we'll close this session of the public hearing, but we'll keep it open at the next meeting. One of the things I will note, we are going to amend the local law as it's currently written to fix that, where in the one section it was a copy and paste error. One area it's talking about the mixed use redevelopment area and accidentally used the same for the part about the gas pumps. We're going to switch it to that will be switched to mixed use redevelopment corridor. The gas pumps are only in the corridor. Doesn't make sense to us to put them into the Marketplace Mall, that area. But along this corridor, again, there's been multiple requests. There are other gas stations in the area from before they changed the zoning. But for those who aren't aware of the way Burned Dairy, they're looking at, it's 4 pumps. It's not a huge number of gas pumps, but their model, when people stop at the grocery store, their grocery store, they often like to get gas. And so that's part of their business model. They won't cite a location without one. And right now, gas pumps are only allowed in industrial zones. That was changed many years ago. And we've just not changed that because then it gets into, there's already a lot of gas stations here. I don't know that we need a whole lot more. And so the fact that it's only in industrial zones, that's not so bad. But like I said, this particular one area we're looking at that in those two locations, I think it would make for a good use. I will note that there is industrial zones over on Erie Station Road, so that would be they would have to be extended a little because this area was part of the Howlett Acres. Although if you read the original approval, there were these two exception parcels, which were supposed to be industrial or commercial. When that thing was approved in, I think it was 2017. But, you know, so like I said, it would be an allowed use in both places, so. I don't know what you're pointing at. I already asked that question. Yep. All right, then hearing, seeing none, I'm gonna close this session of the public hearing for the proposed local law to amend the zoning code of the town of Henrietta to provide additional amenities and incentives for incentive zoning and to clarify ambiguities in the mixed-use overlay tables in section 295 appendix A. We will keep the public hearing open for the next meeting. All right, do we want to take a break before we go to
That would be much.
resolutions? So, all right, we'll take about a 5-minute break and we'll reconvene. And again, thank you for everybody's participation.
Yeah.
Don't run out. I'm not getting your way. Hello.
So, Rob Barley,
Rob was just here. No talking, Rob. No, we're good.
Mike, come on in. Rob will join us when he's here. We'll all pick on him for, he's got 2 resolutions before he's needed.
Oh.
I'll take his if he's not here by the time his resolution comes up.
Chatting too much.
All right. Welcome back. Can I get my first resolution?
Mr. Supervisor.
Yeah.
Mike, you're taking some of mine, so it's tit for tat.
The problem is both Millie Safranek and Mike Stafford have the same initials. So,
I think I should have taken the MS because I'm a miss.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm a miss.
No. Well, Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 15, 257, 2026 to approve it and or ratify the following agreements.
Second.
any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley. I see him walking up.
Hey, both of those, here and I.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 15-258, 2026 to authorize bills payable and any associated contracts or agreements for July 6, 2026 through today, July 22nd, 2026.
Second.
Any discussion? Unfortunately, I didn't get through all my emails, so I don't know any of the major expenditures in this one, but I usually try to say that, but I don't remember what they are. I'm sure there's a number in there from construction.
Yeah, there were some big ones. But I don't know that I know what the breakdown is.
There was about 273,000 for the construction of the dog.
We're having a hard time
We
hearing.
can't hear you. We're having a tough time hearing you.
Sorry about that. There's about 273,000 for the construction of the dog shelter, another 122,000 for paving, 55,000 for the sidewalk grinding project, and 30,000 from the Monroe County Sheriff's agreement for quarter 2.
Great, thank you. That was Linda Salpini, our finance director.
Steve, do you know how much offhand that is it asphalt this year compared to last?
It's gone up significant. I don't know if Craig Barber's on, basically it's very dependent on oil prices and with what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. So we've, as much as possible, we've been trying to push back, wait a bit on some of our larger projects, just to try to save costs, we're kind of hoping that the conflict would have been resolved by now, but we'll see what happens.
No, I was just curious if it was 20% or 50%.
Oh, I think it's even higher than that.
Okay.
It could be double.
I'm here, Steve, if you need me.
Yeah, how much more is asphalt right now?
Since last year, it's up about $25 a ton.
$25.
As opposed to?
Last year at this time.
No.
How much was it?
What was it last year?
It was right around $80 a ton. Right now, it's around 105.
Okay.
Yeah.
Says 300.
No, he said 80 to
80 then.
so up to 25. So it's up, I guess it's 33%.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear him correctly.
Yeah, I know, it's hard to hear. Yep. All right, thank you. That was Craig Barber, our superintendent of highways.
Thanks, Craig.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-259, 2026 to issue a notice to perform work to the owner of 50 Faircrest Road, Miles residents for property maintenance issues.
Second.
So, as all the neighbors of this property know, this has been a longstanding issue. We've been fighting it in court, getting some solution, not a lot. And also when we get some progress, it's typically very temporary. Right now it's at one of its peaks. And so we're putting this in place. If they're unable to get it, resolved, we would hold a public hearing at our, September 3rd meeting. And depending on the outcome, we could decide to send in town crews to remove the junk. Specifically, they have to remove any junk or abandoned vehicles pursuant to Town Code 207, Section 207.3. Remove all garbage and debris from the yard pursuant to Town Code Sections 205.12 and 205.13. Remove all cars parked on lawns or other unpaved areas and keep those areas clear in the future pursuant to Town Code Section 207.12. Remove all trash and debris from the yard and contain it all in proper trash receptacles now and in the future pursuant to Town Code Section 209-4. Properly contain any projects either indoors or behind a privacy fence in the backyard to maintain a clean, sanitary, and safe condition pursuant to Town Code Section 205.13. And repair any lawn damage and mow as needed pursuant to Town Code Section 148-22. You know, people, this is typically what I'll call a action of last resort when we can't get them to fix it any other ways. It's a little draconian for my flavor, but at some point, you got to do it because, you know, again, the property has just been an eyesore for years. So, any other questions or comments?
No, it's been 8, 9 years and since you've been in office, it's been an issue, so.
Yeah, it's been
an issue long before he-
It's way before that.
Yeah, it's been going on for
just
decades.
I remember very patient.
I remember attending a meeting prior to you being in office, Steve, and them talking about arresting the grandmother and putting her in jail.
Yeah.
The former.
Just chime in. I can say at least 20 years.
Wow.
From my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been going on a long time.
A lot of patience.
Any other
Supervisor
ahead.
Schultz, I noticed I think there's a typo on the resolution. The first, therefore be it resolved, has the deadline for remedy of 1 o'clock on Friday, August 28th, which does match the letters that have been prepared.
Yep.
However, the last be it further resolved has Monday, August 31st. So I think that last be it further resolved is supposed to say Friday,
I
August
think
28th.
what that 1 PM on Monday is our re-examine.
Oh, okay.
So it should be prior to the re-examination. You know, I guess we could add it or we could just leave it as that's what that date is. That's the re-examination. That's when code enforcement will actually be out there. I mean, they'll be out there on Friday. It essentially gives them
3 more days.
Yeah, it gives them the weekend if he gets out. So when we go and inspect it on Friday, we say, hey, you did a pretty good job, but it gives them the weekend to get it done. By that Monday, if it's not done by that Monday, then we will hold the public hearing. So
Okay.
it's just the
Okay,
wording.
thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-260, 2026 to permit the matching requirement for the EPF Parks Program grant to make the playground at Veterans Memorial Park more accessible.
Second. So we've pursued two. This will be our third grant we're going after for this. It's to make our main playground accessible by switching from wood chips to a rubberized surface. It would also add in a significant number of accessible pieces of equipment, as well as some, I'll just call them standard pieces of playground equipment, replacing some of them that have gotten older or don't see much use. Each time we get a few more points, each time we get denied, I ask them, how can we get a few more points? So being blunt, the problem is we're not poor enough community. And I say that because you get a lot of points for being in a qualified census tract or what do they call it? Economic
income challenge.
Yeah, no, there's another term for it, but my brain's a little fried at this point. But there's a whole number of these different justice areas that you get additional points for being in one. We don't have many of those in town. So, but we'll keep going after it. I do think each time, the application is stronger, so hopefully we'll get it soon. In terms of what the matching requirement, the grant we're going after is about 800,000. The matching requirement would be 400,000. However, the majority of that 400 is actually in-kind work. So when you look at the rubberized surface, the quote for the rubberized surface alone is about 450,000, of which more than half of that is labor to prepare the surface. Our crews can do that. So we're using the quote from the company to value that in-kind service. Basically, we would remove all the wood chips. We would put down the layer of stones necessary. We would do the leveling, and then the company would come in and pour the rubberized surface. So,
Very nice.
and then the remaining roughly $200,000, that would come out of the, if you recall, when we passed the referendum for the spray park, what the referendum actually did was create I shouldn't say actually did, in addition to approving the spray park, it also created a $200,000 increase to our tax levy that is ongoing. That $200,000 every year goes towards improvements of park and recreation facilities. So the first year it went to the spray park. The next year it went to the band shell. This year it's going to the new playground over in Tinker. And then the following year, assuming we get this grant, it would go towards the playground improvement.
Okay.
If we don't get the grant, what we will probably do is use it to soundproof the seal, or not soundproof, but sound baffling in the ceiling of the rec center. Because if you've ever been in there and tried to use the sound system, you can't understand because there's too much reverberation with that metal ceiling. So we have a backup use in case we don't get this grant, but that's what we're looking at from we'll get to that when we get to budgeting. But any other questions, comments?
Comment would be, thank you, Steve, for you and your team for
Yeah.
being so persistent and trying to get this grant money, and hopefully it comes through, but thanks a lot.
You bet. All right. Hearing and seeing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 15-261, 2026 to authorize the sale of the small subdivided parcels between the Phil site and neighboring homes to provide a buffer to the town's operation on the Phil site.
Second.
So for those who don't recall, sometime in the past, we had approved, so I guess it was 2024, we approved a new fill site. We had a meeting with the neighbors there. We promised we would never move closer to 100 feet from their homes. The problem is they asked, well, what about a future town board? There's no way we could lock out a future town board. Anything we put in place, they can reverse. So we said the only way to do it would be to sell you that land, and then the town can't touch it. It's land that we have no use for, and essentially provides that buffer between our DPW operations and the homeowners. So we approved a local law to amend the properties. We approved a expenditure to subdivide and create the parcels. We had done everything except I found that we had never actually authorized me to sign the sale. So I got a thing from our real estate attorney, because 2 of the property owners are buying them, that says we've got the final purchase offer here to sign. And I said, oops, I can't sign it because I don't have authorization from the town board. So we basically did it based off of the value of the land at the time, based off the assessed value of the land. And then there's 2 different rates. One is because some of the land is wetland, so the non-wetland is higher value, obviously, and the wetland is lower. And then the other thing that they agreed to is we would take the cost of that surveying services and split it amongst the parcels. So that's basically what we've done. Okay. Again, it's not a huge amount of revenue for the town, but it's a way to protect those homeowners from future town activity. I'll note that what this one authorizes is only to sell to the adjacent property. There is one of the parcels, which, as we understand it, the homeowner that parcel surrounds is not interested in buying it, but their neighbor is. I don't want to open that can of worms right now. I need to verify that person really doesn't want to buy it and is okay with it. Right now, we're just allowing it to go to the adjacent property. What we can do is I'll dig into that to see if the neighbor is truly okay with it. And if they send us a letter stating they are, we can then do a separate resolution authorizing the neighbor to buy their neighbor's portion. But right now, this just only allows it to be purchased by the adjacent property. So again, if you look on the map, there's these homes, and then it's typically an L. It's to the back and to the side, because we didn't want the town, a future town board, to say, hey, we're going to put an entrance right between these 2 houses. Right. Because we own these little slivers of land between the houses. So we basically are selling those to the homeowners, just to protect the homeowners. So.
A good idea.
And I just think so everybody knows that these parcels aren't accessible to anybody but the landowner. That's why we're not selling it outright, is putting them up for sale.
Correct.
So I just think that's important to let people know. Yeah. You couldn't come in and buy it because you couldn't get to it anyway. Right. Somebody that's not one of these landowners.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. These they're
landlocked.
Right. They're mostly landlocked. Again, they have, you'd be squeezing something in between 2 existing properties. It's just not, it doesn't, again, make sense as independent parcels. They make more sense as, again, expanding or adding to existing parcels. So any other questions, comments? And hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley?
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford?
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek?
Aye.
Councilmember Owens?
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-262, 2026 to adjust the individual contract amounts for the awarded trade contracts for the municipal dog shelter.
Second.
So some of these, we've had, we found some savings, so you'll see the one contract comes down. The other contract, the original bid, we didn't have all the specs done yet for the data security and fire detection. So that was not part of the original spec for the contract for the electrician. So we basically, we got quotes from them, pushed back on them, refined them, and that's the additional quote from there. And so we need to adjust the not to exceed numbers. Any questions, comments? I'll note that that additional $31,000, again, that will be split amongst all the towns that are involved in this project after we've applied all the grants that we've received. All right, hearing and seeing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 15-263, 2026 to approve the first addendum for Henrietta Senior Center Building Addition Project Contract A, General Construction, Loyal 9 Development Corp.
Second.
So if you remember, when we approved these, we were gonna, or when we awarded the contracts, we were gonna then immediately start work on some value engineering to do some savings. They identified roughly $96,000 in savings. To do that, it will cost us approximately $6,000 in additional architecture and engineering fees. The reason is, we took a look at, there was a vaulted ceiling to the north and a vaulted ceiling to the west. The vaulted ceiling to the north is a nice big picture window with north light. It's great. It views out onto woods and then the street to Calkins. The window to the west looks at the face of a hill. When you go there, all you can see is grass. You can't see much beyond that. And so the added cost to do that was a lot. So we looked at removing that, and then the way, it had a steel beam supported by 2 steel columns with big footers. We wanted to eliminate all that, so they had to redesign the wall. Instead of it being one single big picture window, it's a bunch of windows, more like what we see here in Town Hall, where I have window, column, window, column, window. So it basically means I don't have to have additional footage or footers. I can just use the normal building footers and carry that weight. And that gets rid of all the steel. So that's a big amount of savings. So when when we added all this up, it was a way to save a lot of money without shrinking the size and without having a lot of adverse impact. I mean, some of them were smaller things, like there was this complicated herringbone pattern for the tile. We could save, I don't remember what it was, $5,000 by going to a large format subway tile. A lot easier to install, things like that. I very much appreciate Loyal 9 and all the work they did on identifying those spaces, and for Hanlon Architects and their willingness to, redesign at an affordable rate and to make all this work. So the other good news I will say is my wife has agreed to be a development officer once again. She used to do that for RIT and U of R. She's been retired since we had kids. She's going to do that in conjunction with the Friends of the Henrietta Parks and Recreation. So we've got a meeting on, I think it's August 3rd. She'll become part of that group, and she'll be a fundraiser And we're going to pursue potentially large donors, such as, for instance, perhaps we pursue Wegmans to do naming rights for the kitchen, and even allow them, to put the name on the north face of the building so you can see it from Calkins, for a significant donation. So, as this notes, this, I don't know if it's here or if it was somewhere else. I think it might have been somewhere else, but, oh no, there it goes. It's on the next page. So it does talk about that I'm authorized to work with the Friends of Henrietta Parks and Recreation to begin a fundraising effort for the senior center expansion projects, including the potential awarding of naming rights, with those naming rights subject to approval by the town board. So we can't do any naming rights without the town board approving it. But, very happy that she's volunteered to do this, because I don't see any other way we can get this project all done. The good news is we've got enough money that we will definitely do the kitchen expansion, and we could at least do the shell of the other expansion, but I would rather do all the expansion at once. So hopefully we'll be able to raise enough money.
I want to say thank you to Vicky for volunteering to do
Yep.
this. It's important to have someone that knows what they're doing when you're asking for donations, and she's got the skill set. So thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Then hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-264, 2026 to reject the non-compliant bid from Bell Mechanical for the senior center expansion contract C plumbing, and instead award to Whiteco Mechanical.
Second.
So as this is saying, the bid we received from contract C for plumbing from Bell Mechanical, we were informed by them that it was missing a number of components on the fire protection side, which is probably why they were so significantly lower than everybody else. Obviously, going to a higher bid is not something we're happy about, but we have to have a bid that is compliant and has all of the componentry in there, and they can't just modify the bid after the fact.
Right.
There is a bid bond that they submitted with their bid. If I remember, it's I think it's like 5%, so it would be in the 20K range, or I don't remember exactly what the dollar amount is, but it's somewhere there. Bonds, they would forfeit that bond bid bond. So because again, they submitted this saying it was compliant, and that after weeks later, we found out that it wasn't compliant.
Right.
So one of the things we will be doing with all of the other, we started with contract A because that was the big one. We will be working with contracts B, C, and D to see if we can identify value engineering in their contracts as well. And to give you an example, in the electrical contract, I wanted all the sub panels. Right now, there's a bunch of sub panels that are daisy chained. As this building was expanded, they'd run a daisy chain to a new panel, then they'd expand further, they'd daisy chain off of that one. I wanted everything to be home runs to the new panels.
Sure.
But if that's $50,000 extra costs, I'm assuming, now obviously if we get enough donations, I'll say do it because that's the preferred way.
Right.
But if we don't, and we can save $50,000, I'll say as much as I want to get rid of the daisy chains, we'll put up with it. So that's an example of the value engineering that we might do in electric. So we'll see what is and isn't available as we meet with these folks. But the one we really need to get moving is the contract A, because that's where it all starts. And we have the money from the county, which was ARPA funds, and that has to be spent by October. So we do have the kit for the kitchen expansion on order. We just finished off the engineering design of it with that company. There was one piece that they were hung up on. I just said, forget it, just remove it. We'll deal with it when we get here, just to get it going. Because again, we have to get that in now. So that's where we're sitting. Any other questions? And hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Fellow board members, I have resolution 15-265, 2026, to share and affirm the New York State Association of Towns Bill of Rights supporting town governments.
Second. So I'll just read just real quickly some of the specific things that are in the Bill of Rights and that we're especially interested in supporting. Protection and defense of municipal home rule. So that basically says that towns, as the level of government closest to the people, we're best positioned to balance competing interests and make decisions that shape the daily lives of our residents. If it all comes out of Albany, they don't know.
Right.
Henrietta residents have different concerns than, the city of Rochester residents, than the town of Rush residents, than, folks up in the Adirondacks. So home rule is important. Local control of land use and zoning, free from statewide zoning rules that override the voice of residents and taxpayers. So we were just talking about that at the public hearing. Freedom from unfunded mandates. Local taxpayers are not made to bear the cost of order imposed by state and federal authorities without the resources to carry them out. Modernized transparency, accessibility, and engagement, including reform of outdated public notice requirements that consume scarce municipal dollars on print notices that reach an increasingly small number of residents. We don't understand why the state hasn't allowed us to do public notices electronically. That's how most people get them these days. A meaningful voice in state decisions, especially those affecting the hometowns, so that town governments are treated as true partners rather than an afterthought or hurdle to clear. We're basically just trying to change the way they do stuff in Albany. And there's 933 towns in New York State. I don't know if all of them are part of AOT, but a lot of them are. So any other questions, comments? All right, then hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 15-266, 2026, to declare intent to be lead agency for seeker review of the proposed plus or minus 112 unit multifamily housing known as 4058 East Henrietta Apartments, located on the east side of East Henrietta Road and north of Erie Station Road.
Second.
So these apartments, they're located in between the Henrietta Highland Apartments and Roth Middle School. It's been a long vacant open parcel. They came in with some preliminary ideas. They were pushed a bit towards the front. We wanted more open space near East Henrietta Road as well as towards the school. And so they redesigned their plans, and I think it's a better solution, but you'll see when we do the seeker and special use permit process for this. So we're just declaring our intent to be lead agencies. It's a 30-day cycle typically, so this will be sometime in the future. Any questions or comments?
Who was the developer that put the application in?
I don't know who the developer is. We were working with, I want to say it was,
right?
I don't remember. Typically at those meetings, we tend to meet more with the engineering firm, which Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, was it Passero?
Steve, this is Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. Yes, Passero Associates was the engineering firm on the project. Also ADI Realty is the owner of the parcel, and they were the name on the application that was submitted for the special use permit.
Great. We don't know that ADI, we don't know if it's a realtor, so they may not be developing it. But they're the name on the application. We'll definitely make sure to ask that question at the before the public hearing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who the developer is. Like I said, we met with Passero. All right, any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-267-2026 to accept the dedication of a 8-foot wide asphalt multimodal trail at the Aptitude Student Housing Complex, the Marshall, located at 3986 East River Road.
Second.
So one of the things we did is the portion of the trail that's on the RIT property, they plow it. For the ones that are on these apartment complexes have been plowing it. We're going to work to keep that going.
Okay.
We'll take over maintenance of it. There will be a slight modification potentially at the north end as we try to make that final connection through the either through the northern edge of the, or excuse me, eastern edge of the cemetery. There was some additional land added there, or we've heard rumors that there's potentially someone coming into the Wallman property. We would work out the deal with them to get the easement to carry it through. Because if you've been there, there's that small section that isn't completed because we could not work out anything with the Wallman brothers. They just they would not agree to anything. It was frustrating. Then what basically once this becomes public, then if we get credit for it, this becomes our matching for the other part of the project. Because if you remember, we built these with grants from New York State DOT, a multimodal 4 grant from New York State DOT, as well as a SAM grant through DASNY. The DOT grant was spearheaded by Assembly Member Harry Bronson, and the SAM grant was spearheaded by State Senator Patrick Gallivan, which gives you a little indication of how long ago that started.
Yeah.
It took DASNY something like 4 years to get through the approval process. Wow. It was very frustrating. The good news is we did this project with Monroe County DOT as they were doing all the work on East River Road. That saved a lot of money. And so we have significant dollars left in both those grants. We've worked on getting the approval. I do have the approval already from the DOT that we will be able to use the remainder of the MM4 grants to improve the shoulders and the crosswalks, that intersection at Erie Station and East River that I talked about earlier today. I have not heard back from DASNY yet. I know that's a shocker, but hopefully we'll move that. If not, there is some repair to the other section, which is why we haven't taken that dedication yet. And there were a couple areas where when we put the walkway in, and when you look at it, because of the elevations of the surrounding ground, the stuff washing in off the road, there's a couple areas where mud is going over the trail. Okay. So what we would do is use the remainder of that SAM grant to raise that portion of the walk up just to prevent that. But you know, the nice thing is this creates a great walking, bicycling, scooter trail for all the students who live along East Henrietta Road who might want to get their on the means other than a bus or a car. So
Mhm.
it's been a great addition. And for those who don't recall, what initiated this was there were students walking in the road on East River Road, and a box truck went by, and the large outsized mirror clipped the head of one of those students. They were in the hospital for quite a while. Was touch and go for a little bit. Thankfully, they pulled through, and to my knowledge, have no lasting medical effects from that. But you know, it was important that we have that there be a sidewalk on that busy street. So, any other questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 15-268, 2026 to authorize the supervisor to execute a proposed drainage easement at 191 Fitzpatrick Trail to the town.
A second.
So in this area, there's a high ground above it. This is kind of the low spot in that whole area. Water's been pooling there for a while. We're just extending putting a catch basin in the backyard along the property line between the two property. The gentleman at 191 Fitzpatrick was willing to give us the easement, so we're just putting it on his property. The two adjacent properties will be responsible for any French drains or anything else they want to put in to collect, because they've got water collecting in various portions of their backyard. We're not looking to drain their backyard. We're just looking to provide, because that's where all the water from the hill above comes down or collects. We're giving them a way to get that water off their property. But they'll be responsible for running any French drains or other connections into this manhole.
Mhm.
Any questions or comments?
Go ahead. Oh. Just, you know, we have a lot of properties that have drainage issues. I'm just curious, you know, why this, you know, if this is gonna open Pandora's box for one.
No, we've done this for other properties where we do, a lot of it gets into the nature of those drainage issues. Are they solvable, right? Is there a sewer, this one just happens to have a sewer main nearby that the depth of the storm sewer is low enough that you can get there. Some of the houses, they're lower than the storm, you can't get enough drop in the storm sewer to connect to them. The other thing we avoid then too is if it's only one house, we'll put it in, but they would have to pay for it. It has to serve more than one house.
And that was my question. Is there already something going through there that they can
Tap into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
The only
So
comment,
this is actually a very small, again, there's and we picked this location because there is a manhole right out at the curb. So we just have to do a little back pipe and put a new catch basin there.
Perfect. Thank you.
it was nice to know that the resident will get some relief as long as they can run a lateral.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah, we've done this in a couple other places. Like I said, we just have to go through and make sure it meets the requirements of the biggest issue usually is there a storm sewer nearby that we can get stuff to? Any other questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-269, 2026 to authorize the advertisement of bids for the salt storage building roof replacement project.
Second.
So our salt barn has an old roof as well as there is a shed dormer. That roof is in much rougher shape because it has a lower pitch to it. So this will be replacing the asphalt shingles, as well as putting wood on. talked about the possibility of going to the metal roof and realized the barn's not gonna live that long to justify a metal roof. There was a question whether we should look at enlarging our barn. We don't believe there's a need for that, especially now that the school district and fire district are both purchasing their salt through us. We go through salt faster, so, you know, when we have to load up, we're required to buy a certain amount of salt to get the low pricing. I will say with the last couple winters, going through our salt has not been the issue. But you know, there have been a couple years where we've had to store additional salt elsewhere to meet our minimums. But with the fact that, again, others are using our salt now, other municipal entities are using our salt, the chance that we're gonna not meet those minimums is slim.
You said the school's gonna use our salt. Do they have a salt barn too, or we're?
No, they're using our salt
Okay.
barn. They are paying for it though.
Okay.
As is the fire district.
Okay.
It's a pass through. Where they're getting the same low rate that we get
And they're just using it for their.
for their parking lots and things like that. Yep.
But when you said they're using it now, I thought it was a new agreement.
It was a new agreement. There was this outdated agreement from back in the days when salt was dirt cheap and we were providing it for free. And we were a little stingy with it, I'll say. You know, if they're paying for it, they can use as much as they deem necessary now.
Yep, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-270, 2026, to authorize the supervisor to sign and submit an amendment to the 2025-2026 snow and ice agreement with the New York State DOT.
Second. So basically, the state did, as part of the budget, increase the amount paid to towns to help offset the cost of snow and ice removal on state roads and other roads. For us, that's about an additional $250,000 to cover those costs. And all we have to do is sign the agreement. So this one's pretty much a no-brainer. Any other questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 15-271, 2026 to authorize the purchase of a planer high flow for the highway department.
Second.
So this is basically, it's a edge milling type machine that goes on the front of a Bobcat. It allows us, you know, like if we have to mill around catch basins or stuff like that, that you can't get with a big milling machine. So, any other questions, comments? I will note that this was one of the things we had allocated funding from the contingency in excess, excuse me, fund balance in excess of contingency.
Yeah.
This is one of the things we had allocated. And we called it a milling machine. Hearing and seeing no further comments, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-272, 2026 to authorize the purchase of a Bobcat compact excavator for the drainage department.
Second.
So this one was also in that allocation of the fund balance in excess of contingency. That was about 70,000. The additional, that's all they needed in addition because they had some money in the budget. So the remainder of that cost is coming from the drainage budget, and then supplemented by the allocation from contingency. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 15-273, 2026, to authorize the purchase of a grapple rake for the Buildings and Grounds Maintenance Department.
Second.
And this one was also in that allocation, although there it was called a Prentice hook. But it's something that allows us to pick up and move trees. It would also allow us to pick up and place the utility poles like we use when we do netting around the driving range. So any other questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-274, 2026 to authorize the purchase of gymnastics team uniforms from Quattro Gymnastics.
Second.
So parents will be paying for cost of the uniform for their children who are participating in the program. Portion of the cost is actually being covered by the Friends of Henrietta Parks and Recreation, who are donating $3,500 towards that purchase to bring the cost down. Will be 6 additional that will essentially be carrying until a future team member joins and purchases. We wanted to have them on hand in case we get any additional team members. So any questions or comments? I'd like to thank the Friends of Henrietta Parks and Recreation for the fundraising they do to help offset the cost for these uniforms, because it can get costly for families. So, and hearing and seeing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Fellow board members, I have resolution 15-275, 2026. Whereas the Summit Federal Credit Union has donated $5,000 to the town of Henrietta Parks and Rec Department in support of the 2026 Henrietta Summer Concert Series. And whereas the Summit Federal Credit Union wishes to be designated as the 2026 Platinum Level season sponsor for the Henrietta Summer Concert Series, and whereas a check in the amount of $5,000 was received by the finance director, therefore be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks the Summit Federal Credit Union for its generosity.
Second. So we've already had 2 concerts as part of the series. You might have seen their signage out to the sides of the band. The new venue has been great. The acoustics are great. The sight lines are great. It provides lots of shade for people attending the concerts. The only issue we've had is we had purchased a sunscreen. It was there for maybe 2 weeks, week to 2 weeks, and unfortunately someone sliced the bottom of it. From there, the wind took over and just tore it in half. But you could see right through the reinforcing there was a cut.
Yeah.
And then up from above that, you can see it was basically tattered from the wind. So we lost our sunscreen. We are working on the permanent wall surround. We're just our maintenance mechanic 1, Corey Rivers, he's been putting together the pricing. Our Deputy Director for Engineering, Luke Bushin, has been working on the design. And the only thing we're waiting on is to get verification of the exact size of the new stage to make sure we don't find out that we put up the walls and then the stage doesn't quite fit. So, we'll get that started soon. We'll at least get the outside walls. The bathrooms won't be done before the concert's over, but we're hoping we can get some of the walls up sooner rather than later. Because if we were there for the Bare Naked Lady tribute band concert, where the guitarist was in the sun the whole time, he was constantly having to retune his guitar because the sun affects the tuning. So, but like I said, the venue's been great. It's interesting because a lot of the people, they're not straight out in front, they're kind of off to the side because that's where the shade was. But the other great thing is if it's raining like we've had a couple times, sprinkling in vast concerts, there's a lot more room now for people to be under the roof and out of the rain. So
Fantastic.
it's been a great addition. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 15-276, 2026. Whereas Rosemary and David McNitt have donated $200 in memory and honor of Shirley and Robert Berry to the Henrietta Public Library for outreach events. Whereas a check in the amount of $200 was received by the library director. Therefore, be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks Rose, Mary, and David McNitt for their generosity.
Second.
So this couple has been doing donations on a regular basis. We very much appreciate their continued support of our library. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-277, 2026 to accept and authorize the Director of Information Services to sign an intergovernmental agreement with New York State for multi-factor authorization hardware token.
Second.
Hardware tokens.
Yeah. So these basically allow them to do
Like security.
additional security, multi-factor authentication. There's small, I believe they're USB style that they plug in and basically does multi-factor authentication.
Okay. Wonder if that's what my IT guy was talking about. That
Yeah, I don't know. Any other questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 15-278, 2026 to call for bids on Microsoft 365 licenses 2026 for the town's cloud-based software solutions.
Second.
So when we looked at the total amount, it was coming in over $25,000, so we had to go to bid. But our current licenses expire on August 13th. Microsoft no longer has a grace period like they used to. So one of the things we're going to have to do, it's going to be a short package. We are, for this bid, per the new state code, we are going to allow electronic submission of bid responses. There's how to do that is detailed in the instructions to bidders. We are not passing, we're doing it as a separate resolve clause here just for this bid because we want to see how this process works. We will probably look to reform and come up with a better process through our website. But for right now, we're going to be doing it through an email method because one of the requirements to do electronic bids, we have to verify who the sender is. You know, so after we've done this and potentially, you know, we'll work to put together a standard practice so that potentially all future bids will allow electronic submission in addition to physical submission. Under that New York State law, we could, for technology contracts, allow just that the only means is electronic submission. That's not what we're doing here.
Okay.
We're still allowing physical. We're just adding the electronic because it's such short notice.
Yeah.
And some of the vendors are from outside the region.
Mhm.
They're basically authorized Microsoft resellers. It's a pretty straightforward bid, but because of the timing, we're going to have a call for a special board meeting to be held at 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, August 6th for the purposes of awarding the bid. So you should have received a meeting notice from the town clerks. I expect that to be all of 5 minutes.
4:30 that was, right?
Yeah, and we won't need a town attorney. Basically, what we're going to do is it gives us a day to evaluate the bids, pick who the winning selection is. It's based off low cost, but we have to make sure that they are proper providers and have the experience and infrastructure necessary to support us. And then basically we would come in and say, this is the low bid. We'd say, okay, and then we go to meeting adjourned. Any questions, comments?
Sure.
And hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Zafranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 15-279, 2026 to authorize the Monroe County Sheriff's Office to install license plate reader equipment on town-owned infrastructure within the New York State Department of Transportation and Monroe County rights away.
Second.
So this has been on discussion for a bit. There were some concerns, so we've made it a conditional approval to address those concerns. The license plate readers, they operate in two modes. One is what I'm going to call alert mode, and that is, let's say they have stolen license plate of stolen vehicles from a 911 call, or maybe it's an Amber Alert, kidnapping, something like that. They have a list that they put these license plate numbers in, and if one of them drives past a license reader, it pops up at the regional investigation operations center. And so they can then immediately dispatch someone and hopefully, you know, catch the criminals, especially if it's like an Amber Alert. The second operation is for investigations, for criminal investigations. So there was a perfect example of that. Recently, there was a homicide that happened at night. They had, I believe it was gunfire, so they knew precisely when the shots were fired. The only major way out of where the shots occurred, there happened to be a camera at either end, so they checked the cameras in both directions. And they basically found a vehicle, only one vehicle, it was in the middle of the night, drove through either of those intersections within a reasonable amount of time as it would take to leave the scene of the crime. They then used that to produce their initial suspect. They did a lot of investigatory work. Sure enough, it turned out to be the perpetrator's vehicle. So it helped them lead to an arrest within a couple days for a homicide. So, you know, one of the concerns that we obviously have is, okay, if that data is there, you know, is it, who owns it, who's it being prepared, you know, who has access to it? It is owned by the Monroe County Sheriff. So one of the things we have here, one of the conditions is the approval is only for systems whose data is under the control of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. There are some of these services where a private company provides the cameras and they have access to the data. We don't want that. So, and to be honest, the Sheriff's Department didn't want that either. They only want, they purchase a system that they have control of the data and only that. We have in here that should the sheriff's office ever switch to a system where the data is under the control of a private company, or the current system switches to where the data is under control of a private company, then this approval terminates and the Monroe County Sheriff Office must remove the existing cameras. One of the other things we had concern about is that, this data is only used for criminal investigations, and that there was especially concern with regards to federal agents such as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE. So again, that one of the conditions on this approval is the Monroe County Sheriff will share any recent or proposed changes to the policy governing the use of and access to the cameras of their stored data, especially with respect to the use of the data outside of criminal investigations and or used by federal agencies such as Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So their current policy does not allow that use. Their current policy is it's their investigators only. So we basically want to make sure that if that ever changes, we're notified, and then we can make the decision as to whether we require them to remove the cameras.
Steve, on that one, I was reading this, I agree with you, but it only says they're going to share those recent or proposed changes. I'd like to add a line in number 3, the town board could then request the, removal of the cameras.
Okay, we'll just we'll do that in a second.
Okay.
We just had that additional locations may be added by request of the town supervisor. Basically, it just allows us to not have to go through a long formal process, but in terms of the additional locations, I would share that with the town board. If we're okay with it, then we'll just allow them. And then the other thing it makes clear is that the Monroe County Sheriff Office, there was someone that asked the question about who's paying for this. It's all being paid for the Monroe County Sheriff Office, including they're responsible for all maintenance of the readers, which also includes that should one be damaged due to the pole it is mounted on, being knocked down due to a wind, an accident, or any other reason, again, they're responsible for paying for that. So there's no liability on the town whatsoever. Okay, with that said, the language we can put is, we'll say at the end of 3, maybe Mike, that it'll say, at which point the town may decide to terminate approval. I don't want to say we're going to.
No, I was
and require removal of existing cameras.
Yep.
Okay. Does that work?
I was looking at the last line of number 2. If we threw a may in there, it would probably, the town word may, but yours is fine.
Yep. Okay, so I will make a motion that we amend the resolution to add to the end of paragraph 3, that at which point the town may decide to terminate approval and require removal of existing cameras.
Second.
Any other comments on we're now discussing and we'll be voting on the amendment? Any other comments on the amendment?
Comment would be, if we didn't own these utility poles, they'd be able to do this without our approval, right?
That is correct.
Okay, that's all.
Yep.
I think he has a question out there.
Coming up.
Hi, good evening. Steve Sant from Stone Road. This sounds interesting. Is this for one reader or something by the office here, or they're going to put multiple readers through the town?
There's multiple readers through the town. They're actually all through most of the rest. We're one of the few towns who owns our utility poles. When we acquired the street lights, and so any of those at the intersections, the utility poles that light the intersections, we control those. So they're talking about intersections like Jefferson Road and West Henrietta Road, Jefferson Road and East Henrietta Road, the major intersections.
Are they using those throughout the county already?
They are. And they also are already on every sheriff's vehicle actually has one.
I know the sheriff's vehicles. I know years ago I saw them over at Eastview Mall.
Yeah.
You know, that they were using for more, I think, just watching who's coming and going from the mall.
Yeah, that's not the purpose here. This purpose is more from, like I said, from the two uses I described
Right.
earlier.
And is this similar to flock cameras? I've seen news reports on flock cameras. I think it's mostly in Europe.
I'm not familiar with the flock camera.
The public really, are these separate on separate poles or on
They're
light poles?
So they're attached. So at most intersections, there is a utility pole with a
Traffic light.
Cobra head. Well, no, they're not. This isn't the traffic light. This is the Cobra arms, the light that lights up the intersection.
Okay.
When we purchased all of the street lights to convert to LEDs, we became owners of those poles. So that's why they have to get approved. Normally they all through the county, they've gotten approval from RG&E. It's in the state or county right of way. So from a right of way standpoint, it's up to the state or the county. And then from a attachment to the poles, they had to get permission from RG&E. In Henrietta, I think one other town, we own the poles. And so they had to get permission. The right of way, it's their right of way, but they had to get permission from us to attach to our poles.
Okay, just sounds a little big brothery that it's all over, but if they're doing it in other areas of the county.
Right. And again, we had some concerns regarding that. You know, this is one of those that, so it's not Big Brother in terms of like, they can't just say, you know, where was John Smith? The other thing is they're not associated with the names. It basically just stores the license plate.
Right.
And then what would happen is, you know, so then obviously once they have that, they could potentially get a warrant, I don't know if it's a warrant, but they would then go to the DMV, you know, afterwards, if to use that.
Well, they would already have the information from DMV on the license plate.
They don't. They have to actually request it. The sheriff has to request it.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what they did, for instance, going back to that murder case. I will say that they have used this very successfully to recover a lot of stolen vehicles. If you remember, there were some vulnerabilities in Kias and other cars, and there were a lot of stolen vehicles. You know, Monroe County is actually one of the worst areas in the state for stolen vehicles.
Right.
Rochester crime is pretty high, and so this was an effort to try to reduce that. The stolen vehicles, restore them to the owners, and that's what they use it for a lot. But like I said, they've also been using it for if an incident occurs, can they establish that the vehicle in question was near the crime scene or leaving the crime scene.
So I'm looking online, it says Monroe County and the local municipalities, including the town of Greece, utilize flock safety automated license plate readers, ALPR cameras, to track vehicle movements. The Monroe County legislature passed the resolution to install these cameras in over 50 locations in areas across Rochester, Greece, and Aroniquette. So apparently it is like a flock.
Yeah, the flock.
I just don't know I'm not familiar with the term flock.
I've seen some not polite, not nice things about it, and where residents and people are going up to the flock cameras and sawing the.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, so one of the things that a lot of those, and this is what this sheriff's office was avoiding, what you're seeing is, like I said, it's the same thing with the school bus cameras. I don't know if you've seen, there are companies that will outfit a school bus for free with cameras that detect people who pass through. But it's on the condition that, oh, by the way, they get to collect the fines.
Yeah.
Our school district did not go that route because they don't think they find that those companies are over aggressive on who they ticket and fine, and they're like, these are the people who are paying our school taxes. We don't want to do that to them. So they're looking at other ways to potentially add some of those cameras through state grants, but they want to be in control of who issues the tickets. The Monroe County Sheriff's the same way. There are some of these camera systems that they'll come in and they'll put the cameras in, and like some of them are also associated with red light cameras, so they automatically ticket somebody who goes through a red light. It creates a lot of backlash because again, they tend to be over aggressive on the ticketing. Monroe County Sheriff was not interested in an arrangement like that. They only wanted the cameras if they have sole control of the data, because then they can protect it.
Yeah, I lived in London for a couple of years there. You can't walk anywhere in that city without being on a camera or
Right.
something somewhere. But that's not reading license plates, that's looking at faces and movements and.
Yeah. So, I mean, this country is getting along those lines between, things like Ring cameras and security cameras and the intersections. A lot of them now, instead of having the cables in the street, the induction loops in the street, which are expensive to maintain, if you look up, you'll see the little U-shaped thing. There's a camera up there, and they pay attention when a car comes into the intersection. They control the light change. So, there's no question. Of course, if you're concerned about being tailed, this little device here, your cell phone, lets businesses know your whereabouts. And there's a lot of them, you talk about, I won't be the least bit surprised if I start getting ads for traffic cameras because we've been talking about it.
Yep.
So it's
Good to get some of that stuff sometimes.
yeah, I agree.
It says here that Flock refers to a private security company that puts these out. That's what.
Yeah, so assuming that was an AI, I wouldn't be surprised if Greece did that, but to my knowledge, I've not heard that name associated with the Monroe County system.
Oh, these are Motorola.
Oh, that's right, he did mention that.
Yes.
Yep. So these ones are not Flock.
They're not Flock, but I think the technology maybe is somewhat similar in that they are AI readers. So they will determine like certain characteristics of the vehicle that go through, as well
Might
as
be just a regular camera.
Well,
looking at.
no, hold on. He talked about there's two different things at the meeting. So the one, it just locates the license plate. The cameras that they're talking about, those are just snapshots. The ones that are in the sheriff's vehicles are different. Those ones are constantly running video, and then they put it through AI that goes out and finds the license plate from the video, and that one has more characteristics.
well, he had mentioned that they could utilize it to plug in certain characteristics of a vehicle and determine if they can get a hit for that. And if it picked up that particular license plate, then they could use the characteristics of the vehicle to track it down within their system and then pick up the license plate from that.
Yeah, my point is, it's not a video. It would have to be.
It's not a video.
What's stored is there is still frame.
Yeah, it is a still frame and but it is using AI technology.
And if they wanted to move into another, say a video or.
If they were to change the stuff, as far as the terms and stuff, then we would get notified proposed changes of the
Yep.
policy
For the cameras that are up on the town's
on the town's
poles,
tower.
utility poles. But as the supervisor mentioned, they're up all over the county. So we don't really know or have any authority over any of that.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Steve.
Yep, appreciate it.
All right, so on the table currently is the proposed amendment. So any further discussion on that? And hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Was there any online?
I'm assuming if there was something online, Becky would inform us.
Okay.
We do have some folks, they do not have their hands raised.
Right.
Okay.
So please call the roll on the amendment.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Okay, so we are now voting on the resolution as amended. Any further discussion? And hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Yeah, it just went away. Let me just, there.
Oh, locked you out. Right out.
Fellow board members, resolution 15-280-2026 to acknowledge receipt of the June 2026 revenue and expense reports, which includes the town clerk monthly reporting.
Second. Any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have the last resolution of the evening, resolution number 15-281-2026, to hire personnel, make the attached changes, and improve the attendance incentive pay.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Owens,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. I'm going to change the order slightly because we've had an individual waiting very patiently with us. So I'm going to go to the additional discussion items or comments from the public.
You pick it right, Steve.
I'd like to thank the board for that. The reason I'm here is about a year ago, I was here when the board approved the zoning change for the residential units at by Pinnacle Lutheran Church. And it was changed a little over a year ago. I didn't realize it's been that long. A couple of things have come up recently since that. I believe the project is not moving forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The primary developer seems to have moved on to other stuff.
Well,
And so I think he's looking for another owner. I will say, assuming you're calling or here to talk about the sign that's up there,
well,
that sign certainly overstates things.
two issues. One, I've addressed with code enforcement that the maintenance of the parcel 1 and parcel 2, there's been no maintenance. And parcel 2, which is more the drainage area between my house and the church, there's been no grass cutting all year, or weeds, whatever you want to call it, the stuff that grows. But from Stone Road all the way back. There has been some cutting over by the higher area by the condominiums. They cut that about 8 weeks ago. The poor guy that was out there was sitting in one of those sit-down mowers for 5 hours, and he got about a third of that whole property done because it had grown so much because of the wet spring. Last Friday, they cut a little bit of the hill where they put up the new for sale sign. So they are where they have to maintain it. I filed with code enforcement. I talked with them on Monday about that. I think they're going to reach out to the owner.
They already have, to my knowledge, they notified them. It starts the clock ticking. If they don't get it mowed with it by the due date, then we actually send a contract mower in and send the bill to them. So it will get mowed inside of a week. If it doesn't, send me an email at supervisor@henriettany.gov.
I will do that. I realize it's only been 3 days. Yeah, one of them had some rain. The reason I'm bringing it up is because right now they're in breach of drainage easement on the property. which says they have to maintain it, they can grow
Yep.
crops and grass, but not shrub, weed, trees.
Yep.
The real reason, and that issue, I wouldn't have come here at all to talk to the town board about, but my concern is the real estate listing that popped up over the weekend. I was gonna bring without my phone, I can't read the
That's fine.
listing, but it's mentioning that this is a pre-approved, shovel-ready project, which it is not.
It is not.
And when I talked to Bob Blaine at the real estate company on Monday, I pointed it out to him. I said, you know, it's a little optimistic of how your description, and the buyer better be beware and do some due diligence before they put almost $400,000 into a property.
Yeah.
He was gonna check with the owner, Mr. Pavone. But Mr. Pavone wrote that, the description. I know you folks have worked with him. And
I will note that Lou has been involved in used car sales, so I think that is.
Yay! So, but with looking at that, I'm not sure, I mentioned it when I was here to the building department, they weren't sure what they could do, but I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. We've got the attorney, you can look at it and read what it says there. It is very misleading.
I don't know that we can govern what they say, but there's no question it is not all approved. In fact, I think their approval has actually expired because they haven't done anything on it. And so it's good for 1 year.
Over a year.
It's been over a year. So I think they've got 0 approvals right now. Now, with that said, when you've gotten a previous approval, if they came back with essentially the same plans, we couldn't deny them without losing a case in court. But they would have to go through that process again. They never had site plan approval. They had a couple different that I'm aware of. Chris Martin can chime in if they did eventually get one. They had a couple, they couldn't seem to make up their minds as to which route they were going to go, and I don't think there was ever a site plan approved.
The only thing that I have is from a year ago. I got it from Land Tech that shows the 5 buildings, 15 units.
Yeah, that was the
concept.
That was the concept plan for the SUP. And then the next step on that is to get the site plan approval. And to my knowledge, they never. I see our deputy town supervisor, Craig Eckert, shaking his head, and he's on the planning board. So he would have seen a site plan approval if.
I've asked through the year, I've asked the planning board and I've talked with the architect.
Yeah.
I think it was last fall in the winter, because hey, what's going on? I haven't heard anything, haven't seen anything. And at that time, he told me the whole project was kind of put on the back burner. And I guess it's now off the burner, seeing how he's selling the property.
Yeah.
So that's, I just wanted to bring it to the town's attention to make sure.
Okay. I just heard Chris Martin's voice. Let's hear what he has to say.
I've been trying to interrupt for the last couple of minutes, but Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning, there has been no applications, period. There's no special use permit. The only thing the applicant did was to rezone the property from R115 to the R215 district. Now, we have had a couple people come in and share a concept with us. And I think if I remember correctly, Mr. Supervisor, one person wanted to rent them out, and we said absolutely not. That would not be allowed. But no, there was no previous application or pending application. It was just the rezone that went through, which is good for the, until it's changed ever again.
Okay, so they never did the SUP?
Nope.
I was thinking they had done, but yeah, so that meeting that we had and we went over all that with the neighboring residents, that was just for the rezone?
That was just rezone.
Okay.
Because I attended that meeting and the special pre-meeting we had with.
With the neighborhood
I
meeting.
think
Yeah.
Chris was at that too, the neighborhood meeting.
Okay.
So that's all, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, so not only is it not shovel ready, they've got none of the approvals necessary.
And that's just a building not dealing with water.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole.
Yeah, so like I said, the other aspect, our code enforcement is on top of it, and they'll get that taken care of. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
you bet.
That's all.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve, I thought of you the other day, during the rainstorm on Saturday. How did that, I often, when we get rain like that, I'll often take a ride by certain areas. And I usually go by yours. How full, close to the, Kim, to your
Oh, it
property?
hurt, it was about half full.
Okay, so it wasn't bad.
Was amazed that it didn't fill up, but the ground was so dry.
Right.
I walked my property, the lower part of my property on Sunday afternoon. And I was not squishing and
Oh, wow. Okay.
because the property was so dry and because the rain was on and off all day. It goes away even when it's full. It
Okay.
goes away within 5-6 hours.
Okay.
So you got a good drain.
But I think the rain, this was like 3
inches.
3 inches.
3 and a quarter inches.
Were you the one that brought in the photo of the duck pond over there?
No, I don't.
No, okay.
I think I had the photos of.
I just remember somebody bringing in the photo of the property there behind the Pinnacle Lutheran with it was so wet that the ducks were swimming through the.
I know a couple of times, I've owned my property since '09, and there's been 3 or 4 times that the rain has real, I get worried that it's coming over and gonna spill into my property. But there's 2 spill gate, one on the storm sewer that opens at the top, so it would let more water out. And then there's on the side property, it would flood Stone Road out before it would hit my property because it's lower. There's a big drainage area there that would just pour the water out of Stone Road. And I'm sure somebody here would have heard about that. If that happened.
All of us.
So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't think I'm gonna wait around for you to read the discussion or the reports.
That's
That's real quick.
I don't know, does anybody have board reports or do we want to wait?
Yeah.
I got a couple quick ones.
Okay, go ahead.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's kind of time sensitive.
Go ahead.
There's a open commissioner position for the fire district, if anybody's interested. They have announced that Ron Barber is the new chairman there.
Okay.
That's what I have. I have something else
Go for it.
Go ahead.
So yesterday I attended the committee meeting. And it was concerning the new new apartments going behind the library. When those apartments were approved in March of 25, they said to make it feasible, they needed to add another floor to make more apartments there. They went in front of the committee board with the same thing. To make this feasible, we gotta have breaks. So I just thought, people might want to know what kind of breaks they got to create 2 jobs, 2 full-time jobs, 1 part-time job, 3 jobs. So they got a tax exemption break of $1,086,720 if the formula I was given is correct, which I'm not 100% sure on that. That's
Is that over how many years?
No, this is the sales tax. That would be about 15,000 to the town of Henrietta. Not a great hit. The mortgage tax.
You're saying they're getting $1 million tax?
No, $1 million, estimated value of sales tax exemption, $1,086,720. So it's based on
Give me that number again.
$18 million.
I don't need the whole.
Or I'm sorry.
Okay, that's what I was.
24 million.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That means
24,000,005, I believe it is, and
so that, would have to be close to 25 because I think they can only waive the local portion, so they can only waive 4%.
Well, it says sales tax exemption, $1,086,720.
Right, that, I know. So my point is, if you divide that by 0.04, that means they're spending $25 million to build this thing.
Yep, that's what they have.
Yeah.
24,500,000. So that's, we lost 15,000 on that. They also, mortgage tax exemption, which we get half of that. That was $137,800. So, we won't get 86 or $68,000 from that. So then also they got a 13-year pilot exemption, pilot plan. The first 5 years are 90%.
They stayed at 90% for 5 years?
For 90% for 5 years.
Wow.
So when you add up for the total of 13 years, when you add up the school pilot and the town pilot, that works out to about $1.78 million.
Good, wrong business.
That the town is losing.
Well,
I'm sorry, not the town is losing. The town, if they wouldn't have got it, the town would have received. Because
well, except it's not just the town taxes on that aren't $1 million.
What's that?
Our tax rate isn't that high that it would be $1 million. That doesn't. Is that town and school?
Town and school. That's what I said.
No, you had just said the town. Okay, town and school.
Town and school tax.
Yeah, that makes more sense. So I'm just saying our rate is so stinking low that you'd be hard pressed to get to $1 million.
Right. So, anyways, with that being said, I just I think people should know that Comida, as far as I remember, was originally set up to attract jobs. There was another applicant in there who received all three of the same benefits. I'm not sure how much they were, but he is creating 200 manufacturing jobs.
Yeah. So one of the things that was done as part of the governor's push to help bring housing down, they've added a bunch of this stuff, exemptions for housing. I again, without knowing any of the details of the costs and stuff, all I know is all of our recent construction costs have come in way higher. And, so the idea that it's not feasible without those, I could believe that because, again, right now, our senior center is not feasible unless we can raise $1 million. So that's just for one senior center, $2 million cost. We need $1 million. They're talking a $25 million project. Again, I guarantee you 5 years ago, that was not a $25 million project. So I understand where you're coming from and I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying it's probably more feasible and more correct than you think because construction costs with the Strait of Hormuz driving oil prices up, with all the tariffs and everything else, Canadian lumber gets tariffs put on it.
Oh yeah.
Construction costs is.
I'll tell you
when you build your house, they didn't come back by and say, "Oh, Steve's a good guy. We're going to give him a tax break on his sales tax. We're going to give him a break on his mortgage tax."
I understand.
90%, I think is excessive.
It is excessive. And for 5 years, I mean, I can see if it went 90, 80, 70 or down 10 years or even 13 years now, but getting 90% for 5 years is really, that's like the golden parachute.
Right.
And they won't even own this thing in 7 years. I get rid of by year 7. It's down to 70%. I sell it to somebody. It's crazy. That's just way too
well,
much.
like I said, and you may be right. I will just point out your alternative is they don't build new housing.
Well, as I've said a million times before, I believe they get their tax break when they come to Henrietta because if they were in Greece, they would be paying how much more? How many times over that amount? So
Well, it's a debate that,
I suggest you guys get into development.
I'm gonna start raising some money for it.
The other, yeah. And
It's some money in those trees.
And I can say the way I believe the meeting was run, it kind of reminded me of the old meetings before you were elected here. And
Rubber stamp.
it was a, before the meeting, anybody with public comment got up and spoke. That kind of caught me off guard. They didn't answer any questions that were asked. They didn't, so I asked a few questions and none of them ever got answered. So
Thanks, Mike, for sharing that. I'd just like to say thank you and congratulations to the employees that were on this perfect attendance from January to June. 21 people, the same suspects. I see a lot of the same names that usually pop up. So congratulations and thanks for showing up to work. And then secondly, for the Summit Federal Credit Union, I want to thank Pam Grubman and her team for putting together that donation and for Summit. And I think it's really worthwhile. It goes a long way for our conference series. So thanks for that too.
Absolutely.
That's it.
I have a couple of things. So, our community bikes is coming out to do a bike repair clinic from 1 to 3 on Saturday. And they are also collecting, bike donations, which they'll, repair and redistribute to individuals within the community who need bicycles. So if you have any old bicycles that are, sitting around rusting in your shed or garage, bring them out this Saturday. And let them lead a new life. From the Parks and Recreation Department, they've been doing a lot of great things this summer. But the fishing derby at Martin Road Park has been rescheduled from August 1st to August 15th because of pond maintenance. So if you've got a young person who would like to participate, that's a great thing to do, and go ahead and register. Also, the summer concert series and Market in the Park is going on this Friday. Is Christmas in July. So come dance with Santa to tunes from the Feedback Band and get some hot dogs or burgers from Dave's Sidewalk Cafe. American Red Cross is hosting a blood donation drive at the Henrietta Rec Center for Scott Hedgeko. This is an annual event. Is held in honor of Sean McMullen. McMullen was a U.S. Army Scout, a wounded warrior, and organ donor who died suddenly in 2015. His heart was donated to Scott Hedgeko. Please register online to donate. And celebrate wild at Tinker Nature Park on Saturday, August 15th from 11 to 2. Enjoy wildlife education presentations, music, and yummy food vendors. And finally, we want to make sure that we get to the movie in the park. Zootopia 2 is going on August 21st at 7 p.m. And that's thanks to the McQuaid Jesuit High School. The Health and Safety Coalition has applied for a grant that they are waiting for. They usually do this grant and use it for training with the school district. But they are able to provide training through the URMC for the district transportation staff. And finally, Youth Board is getting ready for Make a Difference Day, which is in October.
I don't have very much. It's been a busy week, but I think Mike had told me usually I go to the sustainability, or not the conservation board. I don't know if there was something that I kind of miss if at a conflict.
I don't
remember.
Nothing.
Okay. Okay. Just been taking some conferences, personal. I did have a conversation with which I talked to a few of you about one of my former USDA colleagues is on the agriculture committee, and he gave me some good resources for possibilities for our community. And links to like explore, and that's why I sent the question about our solar panels and while they're doing, because there might be some opportunities for those farmers. So I'll be following up, and then later on, I guess a further discussion on our how we can better collaborate with our universities and the other towns, because there seems to be it might be great to have a more deliberate collaboration going on between universities and the towns. Right now, it seems like the universities, when they have a need or a project, they come to us, but there's not a regular communication, and I would like to see us have a better collaboration. There's several communities throughout the United States that have phenomenal collaborations, like Philadelphia with the University of Philadelphia. I think there's also in Arizona and also in a couple other communities. And I think because we're in a community where we have so many universities, that we should actually consider that. And I think we have colleagues in our other towns who are interested in working on that, but we can follow up further down the
That's a
road.
great idea.
Hey, Millie.
Yeah.
Do you know if that fishing derby is also in connection with Elks Lodge?
It's with the Eli Fagan.
Okay, it is. Okay. Eli Fagan.
Yes.
Oh, it's not with Elks Lodge. Elks Lodge does one also, and they have fresh air to come in. I have to figure out when that is. All right, thanks.
Well, I think I heard my finance director say that I've spoken enough for this evening, so I'm gonna make the motion that we adjourn.
Are we adjourned to executive session?
Yes, we will be adjourning to executive session, and we'll be adjourning directly from there. We will not be returning to open matters. So I make a motion to adjourn to executive session on matters regarding the employment of specific individuals. That was a hearing no objections meeting.